Hello, welcome to the THC Show. I'm your host Neil Magnuson, and this is the show where we try to find some of the truths in our world that are relevant to us. Most of those truths are not good in many cases, so we try to find some hope about how we can change things, and of course we also try to find some ways to change things. On the show today we'll have 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca as usual for the 420 session. Jerry Martin will be here to update us on his road to the courthouse, which is coming really soon, and then Martin Medical Moment will explore some of that. We'll have a guest on the show today. Brian Carlisle is going to join us and talk a bit about what he's been involved with and what he's doing now. And of course we'll be out at the CSPRV Healing Wave van to do an update on what's going on with that. And of course that's the quest for a community-based low barrier access cannabis shop, which we've been doing for a while. And previously on the show we've talked about how we've been on this journey for quite a while to try to allow people to have access to cannabinoids for all sorts of variety of reasons, but primarily in this case for the opioid crisis, which has been going on for about 5 years now and has killed many people due to a poison drug supply. And our journey along those lines was that when this first hit back for some years ago, it became really well known that there was a bad drug supply that was killing a lot of people. And my experience prior to that had been that I had had a cannabis shop right close to Main and Hastings, the main area for drug dealing here in Vancouver. And that what we learned in the 3.5 years that we operated that cannabis shop there was that cannabis in the form of high-dose edibles could really help people, especially getting through withdrawal and substituting the use of the other hard, dangerous drugs that were on the streets. And so that that happened back in 2004, that we opened that shop, and we had it for 3.5 years, like I said. And so that now we're into coming up to 2016, where the overdose crisis is really raging. And the city of Vancouver decided that they would regulate all of the unregulated, unlicensed, illegal cannabis shops that were operating around Vancouver. There was over 150 at the time. And the regulations that they introduced banned the sale of edibles. And so for myself, having the experience of understanding how high-dose edibles can get people through withdrawal and replace the hard drugs, to have the city of Vancouver decide to ban the sale of edibles, and their regulations also were designed to do exactly what they did, which was to eliminate probably about 80% of the dispensaries that were operating at that time that couldn't meet the regulations that were put in place. So with a crisis of people dying of overdose, and then the city deciding to ban the sale of high-dose edibles, which I saw as one of the answers to that epidemic, it became clear that something needed to be done. And that started the project that we've been running for 4 years now, the Cannabis Substitution Project. We provided high-dose edibles to people for 3.5 years at VANDU, the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users offices here in Vancouver, right close to the heart of the situation at Main and Hastings. And 2.5 years into that, we managed to get the city on board after we'd had Professor Malloy come and study our project and understand the benefits of it and release papers speaking to that. The city of Vancouver decided that they would pass unanimously a bill to support low barrier access to cannabis. And that's why this is the quest for a low barrier access cannabis shop that was envisioned by Vancouver City Council as a result of our efforts to show that cannabis high-dose edibles can work for people in this situation. So when the city passed that motion, we met with them. We spoke to the councillor that passed the motion, came out with an understanding that we would open a store and provide low barrier access. It took us a while, almost a year, to find a place to rent. We did do that, and we operated a store, which is actually in the space that I'm broadcasting from, for 4.5 months. But in the meantime, the city wouldn't give us a license until we got either the provincial or federal governments on board. The provincial government is non-medical with their licenses, and it's not a process that we could have gone through or would have been successful trying to achieve. It was the federal government that was overlooking medical cannabis, and so we put in a very comprehensive application to the federal government for licenses for us and our suppliers, and also along with an emergency application for a temporary injunction by the health minister to allow us to continue the work that we'd been doing. Because at that point, being in the storefront but not being supported by the city, in fact having the city licensing department threaten the landlord, and now he's threatening to have us evicted, we felt that our program was in peril. And so we appealed to the federal health minister for an exemption to allow us to continue. That was 7 months ago in 3 more days. We're almost at 7-month mark. We have had communication with both the federal health minister and with Health Canada about the issue. They say that they're working on it. In fact, the first correspondence we had from the health minister when we put in our application for that emergency exemption was that they had gotten our application and they would try to process it in a timely manner. The next correspondence that we had was in the form of a conference call that happened just before Christmas time, where they apologized for taking over 3 months at that time to do things, and told us that they'd probably get it done within the first couple of weeks of January, that with COVID and the holidays and what have you. But January came and went, and so did February and March. It's now been 4 weeks ago tomorrow that Health Canada contacted me through email to thank us for our regular submissions. Our fantastic lawyer, John Conroy, has regularly sent submissions to Health Canada to advise them of the ongoing studies that are coming out regularly that show that cannabis is effective for replacing opioids, but also for dealing with all of the drivers of addiction, the depression and the pain and the other reasons that people take those drugs. So they thanked us for that, said that they were still working on it diligently, that they were meeting with the different stakeholders involved, and that the team, would get back to us, but we should be patient. So, this is getting to the point of criminal. I think it's been criminal for a while, but, thank God that we have figured out how to keep the Vancouver police at bay through communications with them about what's going on with our project. We moved out of the shop because we lost our case about eviction. We moved into an RV the very next day, and we've been providing 8 hours a day, 6 days a week service for both the Healing Wave Low Barrier Access Dispensary as well as the Cannabis Substitution Program for all of that time. We've been over 5 months now out in the RV. The Cannabis Substitution Program, once we got the store, instead of just being a long lineup of hundreds of random people that would meet twice a week to get their care packs, it became a program where we registered 250 people that come in, and every 4 days they can choose 420 milligrams from a variety of different things that we get from the donators that donate to us and the bakers that we have baking for us. And so we've been keeping these people in that supply for all of this time, and it's imperative that we continue to do that. So it's good that we've got the Vancouver police to have not interfered with us now for, I guess we're into 15 weeks of just being left alone. And we're still, like I say, providing these services right outside where the store was in an RV. It's disturbing that it's taken Health Canada this long. It's disturbing that that they would allow us to be in the type of peril that really we feel like we're in. We don't know the VPD. They haven't told us that they're not going to stop us. In fact, in the last correspondence with them, or second to last, I was told to stop and that they would arrest us if we didn't. But I explained also that we wouldn't and couldn't, and go ahead and do it if you need to, but we're still going to keep doing what we're doing. And the reason for that is because of the 250 people that are relying on us and have been for years, and the danger that they would be put in if we were to just stop doing what we're doing and stop handing out the edibles to them. Not only that, there's a whole bunch of other people that are being helped almost as if they're in the program. The program got capped at 250. We've got a little more than that. We've been adding a few people lately as well. But we don't turn anybody away, and we do have enough that we've been able to help everybody that comes with a joint and a muffin or a cookie or 2 cookies or 3 muffins or whatever my staff feels that is required by the individual that's in front of them to help them get through the day and the night, and that they can come back again the next day. So we've got well over 100 people, I would say, that are coming to see us almost every day that aren't part of the program, but are still getting 100 plus milligrams in some cases to help them get through to the next day. And we will open up the program quite a bit when we get our license from the government, when we get some permission to do what we're doing. We formed a society and hoping that we could better function and better speak to government about these issues. And yet the banks won't allow us to have a bank account because, our mission statement says that we're going to supply cannabinoid therapeutics to people to help them with their health and wellness. And, the first question is always, well, are you going to be supplying cannabinoids to people that are within the Cannabis Act? And honestly, until the Cannabis Act is changed or until we're given an exemption from it, we can't be distributing cannabis the way that we are and still be in line with the Cannabis Act. So we don't get a bank account, which affects our ability to fundraise. I don't even try to fundraise because we don't have a bank account yet, but I sure will when we do, and I'm sure we'll be a great force once we do. And what's disturbing is that we should have been this great force many months ago now, but we've been left in limbo waiting for a government to try to figure out how they can allow us to do what's easy for us to do, which is to provide cannabis to people at reasonable prices, to poor people, because poor people deserve to have cannabis too, and to people that are struggling with addiction, because people struggling with addiction would be daily users and they would need high quantities of high concentrate or high potency cannabis to be able to deal with getting off of the opioids. So we need to be able to do what we're doing here, and we still are, but we could be doing it so much better than we are right now if we weren't stuck in an RV 40 feet away from what would be a functional, really good, safe space for people to come and access medicine for them, and just waiting because public servants don't want to let this happen. They have structured the Cannabis Act so that they can protect their reputation of having criminalized cannabis use and distribution and production for all of this time, which was completely unjustified and immoral and actually a crime in and of itself. So the government has structured so-called legalization so that they can maintain the stigma and the reefer madness that goes on about, oh my God, we have to protect the children, and maintain high prices, in fact, higher prices than were happening during Prohibition, which is completely obscene. It's just a plant that grows like most other plants. So, we've been trying to address this, and we've been trying to achieve what we're doing for all of this time, and that's kind of an update as to where we are with respect to the Healing Wave RV. There is something that I really feel strongly about with respect to the consequences of Prohibition in the first place, and what that has meant to our society. It's caused great harm to our society for many different reasons, both in the cost of trying to enforce something that is unenforceable, that has taken literally billions of Canadians' tax dollars to try to enforce out the use and production of cannabis. It's harmed so many individuals that have been caught in this corrupt system where they have the forces of the criminal law brought against them. And in many cases, they've had to pay fines that they couldn't afford. In many cases, they've been incarcerated, which costs you your job. It can cost you your family. You can no longer pay rent on your house. And not to mention all of the horrible things that happen to people when they go into jail. I mean, if you're not part of a criminal organization when you go in there, there's a good chance you will be before you get out. If you don't have some sort of communicable disease when you go in there, there's a good chance you're going to have that when you come out. If you weren't anti-government and anti-society when you went in there, then there's a good chance that's how you're going to be when you come out. It's literally a school for antisocial behavior and a school for criminals, and it does really nobody any good, and it costs us just a whole ton of money as a society to get almost no value out of it. We don't produce better people. We don't rehabilitate people. We just cost ourselves a whole bunch of money to make angry people and to hurt people. So, that's something that we really need to address as well. But the big losers in all of this are really the children. It's the kids of those people that go to jail. It's the kids that get lied to about drugs. I mean, kids are told, oh my God, there's all these horrible drugs and they're all bad, and you'll be a criminal if you use them, and it's the last thing that your mom and I want you to do. Well, we all know what kids are like. They're programmed to rebel, and whatever it is you tell them not to do, well, that's what they want to do. And in fact, that is what they're going to want to do, and especially that's how prohibition frames it for our young people, is as something that they kind of need to do to get through their childhood, to become an adult. I mean, you seek out the things that you're not allowed to do and do them so that you can reach adulthood, and that's just what kids do. So when we lie to our children about, these are all bad drugs, and the drugs that they're saying are bad are in many cases just the plant medicines that people have been using for pain and depression and anxiety and relaxation and recreation and adventure and all the things that people take drugs for. These natural drugs that you can produce yourself have been demonized, with cannabis at the very top of that list. And so, there are problems with drugs in our world, and there are problems when you concentrate these substances into harder forms. And so there is addictive qualities to opioids, for example, and some of the other street drugs that people end up with, and the pharmaceutical drugs. And there's a lot of harm that's done by those things, and especially when they're not used properly. And so when we're telling our kids that all these drugs are so bad, and we're scaring them about how bad they are, but then because kids will be kids growing up, and they will have other friends that'll get them into things, and so they're going to end up trying weed. Most kids try weed, and they try weed and they laugh a lot, and they say, well, this isn't, what the hell? Why is this so bad? It's not so bad. We've been lied to about this. And then if you think you've been lied to about this drug, well, all the other drugs must be lied about as well. And if I'm now a criminal because I smoked weed, well, I guess it doesn't matter if I do some cocaine, or if I try to bump some heroin on a weekend, or whatever it is that, maybe next presented to them as they go through their life. It's all just the same. They're already on the criminal side of the law because they smoked weed. And so, all of these things are really putting our kids at risk, and it's really damaging them a lot. And not only that, there's a lot of families that are being ripped apart by the drug war and by all of these lies and the stigmatization. I mean, so many people have children that are ill and need cannabinoids, because cannabis is a real serious medicine for human beings. And it doesn't start being a medicine when you turn 19 or something. There's no magic point in your life where all of a sudden the cannabinoids are going to be able to supplement your own body's cannabinoids and help you with your issues. And so for some people whose kids are really ill, the people who have epileptic children and other serious issues, for them to not be allowed to have cannabis to help their children is really a horrible, horrible thing. To deny a medicine that would improve the quality of life of your child is a very difficult thing for a family and for parents to deal with, is that they know there's something out there that could maybe work for them, but they can't even try it because of the criminal law. And, most parents won't be stopped by that. Most parents will decide that, it's too important that their child gets what they need, and if that's going to help them, then the law be damned. And they will go underground. They will find ways to try to see if this is what's going to help their child. Who wouldn't do that for their child, especially if there's good, credible information that this could help? And yet when those people try that route, if they get caught doing that, or even if they're braver than that and more, feeling like they're righteous, that they're going to tell their medical professionals involved, it's 419, by the way, roll them if you got them, we got a minute, that, that they're thinking this would be a good option for their child. And then they're threatened with the loss of that child. And in many cases, they have their children taken away from them. There's just so many serious problems that are coming because of the government's desire to control us and to control what we consume, to tell us that these drugs are bad, but cigarettes will sell you, and we'll sell you alcohol, and we'll sell you these pharmaceutical drugs that are deadly, but still, they're toxic, all three of those, but they're legal. But the plant medicines, the opium, the coca, the marijuana, the plants that people have been using for thousands of years, they're prohibited and banned. And they're not prohibited and banned because they're worse than these. They're prohibited and banned because they conflict financially with the people that want to supply these. And they're the ones who control our government's decisions. And that's why it's so wrong, is because it's just so bloody corrupt. And I didn't even talk about how, the lies that kids are told about these drugs come back to haunt society, how they learn to disrespect police and government. They learn to disrespect the laws in general. And in fact, in many cases, they end up being lured into gangs and then go down that path. And those gangs all exist because of government policy. The drug gangs exist because of government policy on drugs. If the government had a free and open marketplace where things could be regulated reasonably and distributed by professionals in ways that make sense for us as a society, without demonizing some to glorify some others when all that's involved with that is money and corruption and nothing about truth and reason. It's time that we really address this, and it's time that we really, make it clear to our public servants that it's not within their realm of control, and it shouldn't be ever again for them to prohibit plant medicines and things that people find in nature or anything like that. Because consensual, non-violent, no victim behavior is no place for public servants. And all they've ever done in all of the areas where that applies is mess things up for us and make it worse. All right, I've gone into the 420 moment already, and it's time that we take a little bit of a break from all the seriousness. Glenn Wells, 8 out of 10. How you doing, brother? You can do the chicken wing hello. I think in the future people are going to have sore elbows from that. There's going to be a lot of
just don't cough into your elbow.
So it'll be virtual.
Yeah, virtual.
We'll be doing the chicken wing is the new how you doing, and yeah. Anyway, so
how you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. I got to light this.
It's a beautiful day out there, isn't it?
Fantastic day in Vancouver, BC. I don't know where you are.
Our local weatherman said by Friday we're probably going to be bitching at him. It's too hot. That's what he says.
I'm much more concerned about next Tuesday than next Sunday.
Looking good. They're saying sun until Monday. So
because I want to do the show outdoors.
Yes. Yep.
I don't know what's going to be going on. I'm not part of any organizing group. But there is going to be some people going to Sunset Beach, and there's going to be some vendors there. The people that are going to go down there are stating clearly that they want to do it in a very professional, responsible way and use the proper provincial guidelines with respect to COVID protocols. And so I think that you can protest responsibly.
Yep.
I think that it's still very, very important that we protest the criminal takeover of the cannabis industry by the corporate elite, the denying of medicine to the poor, sick people, because that's what legalization has done. And we need to talk about these things. So I think that there is room for protest, and if it's done responsibly, then I think that the people that are going down there should deserve a pat on the back. And I think that that's what's going to happen.
Well, I'll be there as of noon because I'm I guest on Cindy Howell's show for 420 in Nova Scotia.
Right.
So I will let you know how it is going down there. I will have a small coffee table with me and a couple of chairs. So if we have to do that with Neil for the show, we've got a small area that we've got a table and stuff like that. So
we'll use masks where appropriate.
Yeah.
We'll physically distance.
The
booths will be well apart from each other. There will be physical distancing involved with one customer at a time. All of that kind of stuff. There will be masks and sanitizers and things available to people. So I think that it can be done right.
Yeah.
I was going to go there anyway because I think that's the place to be on 420.
Yes.
If there was nothing going on there, then I would want to report on that. I would have gone down there to do my show.
But even last year, you came down there for 4 o'clock and you sang Cannabis at 420. Because I remember I was there. You were on top of the hill and you started singing and people gathered around and everything.
A few people down below gathered around.
So.
And I was going to do that again this year, just by myself to nobody, if that's what it was.
Oh no, I'll be there.
But there will be people there. One of the concerns is that there be too many people show up, and if that's the case, then I guess I strongly recommend that you stay away.
Yes.
And if you show up down there and it looks like there's too many people for you to be comfortable there, then probably don't go down there.
Walking.
Especially if you're not feeling good.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not feeling good, because that's when we all have to be
and
much
if you're like that, then probably the high count of population of people will be there around the 420 mark. So if you want to check out the markets and not have very many people around, maybe come down earlier during the day.
It's like any other store. I mean, the stores are all open. The craziest thing, I was in the Value Village, and I needed to return some pants that I got because they didn't fit. I couldn't check them to see if they fit before I left the store originally because they don't have any changing rooms there.
Yeah.
So they said, just take them, try them on. If they don't fit, you can exchange them.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to exchange them, only to be told that, yes, we'll exchange those, but, oh, by the way, did you realize that we're destroying everything that's returned to us? I said, you're what? Why did you do that? They said, well, because of the COVID. I said, no, you don't need to destroy things. I mean, it's not going to stay on fabric for more than a day for sure, but I mean, you could definitely put it in a storeroom for 7 days, and then put it back out in the racks. But to just destroy perfectly good things,
I think stores have been doing that.
You know, and I've heard other stores are doing that as well, not just the thrift stores.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't understand the lack of critical thinking and the lack of leadership from the government with respect to many of these things, where they should be telling people, look, this is ridiculous. You don't need to do that.
Did you see what I posted about Ontario yesterday?
No.
So there's a guy in Ontario, in Barrie, Ontario, standing on a corner, and he had a sign and that he wanted some clothes. He was standing there in his G-string.
Yeah.
The G-string guy. Yeah,
I saw the
because
G-string
in
guy.
Ontario, clothing is not essential, and right now during their lockdown, you're not allowed to buy anything that is non-essential.
Well,
so
and
clothing
apparently
is non-essential.
Even diapers were on a list of non-essential items.
And dog treats. You can buy dog food, but you can't buy dog treats. So the guy was saying, I got to go home and tell my dog he's been a bad boy because I didn't bring any treats for him today, right?
These people are so out of touch with reality.
I know. So the guy's standing on the corner with a G-string hanging these clothes and a sign.
Meanwhile, at Value Village,
they're throwing away clothes.
Dozens of people in Value Village, all of them going through all the clothes on the rack, pulling out clothes, touching every single one of them. If it's a problem, then, you know, and it's not. But I mean, you know, they're thinking it's such a problem that people have touched this pair of pants, and I've touched it. Maybe I'm sick and I touched it.
Maybe we should get rid of these sweaters because we both
touched each other. I mean, the level of insanity is driving me nuts. I would just go home and throw them in the washer and dryer, you know? There you go. That gets rid of COVID if there was any COVID there. Because soap and water kills COVID. We know that, right? Yeah,
so,
it's just...
you
would think this far into a pandemic, we would have been given a whole bunch of different instructions and information about where it is a problem, where it isn't a problem. I mean, thankfully, they came out recently, the WHO came out and said that there's virtually no chance you're going to catch it off the surface.
No. Yeah.
Thank you. I knew that. Yeah. There'd been no reported cases, no evidence that people were actually catching it off the surfaces. Yeah. But in a lab setting, you can, put a glob of the virus on a surface, and somebody can now, put that in their mouth.
You're wearing gloves.
So, gloves. We had a person here that we give out food here. We have next door. We have a community policing station there that is involved in taking donations from a Korean church that gets a bunch of stuff donated to them. So we have a process of giving out food here on a regular basis.
With John Murray and Mackenzie?
No, that's the Cannabis Substitution Program. That's our hot food program that we have twice a week. But the community policing station just 2 doors over from us, good friends of ours, they're doing all, and we help them. Mm-hmm. We help them, and some of the food that they're donated is also given to John or Mackenzie to use for our hot food program. It works very, very well. But somebody showed up there, the other day when they got a bunch of big food delivery, and they were like, "Okay, well, everybody has to be masked up, and everybody has to wear gloves." I'm in charge here now. I'm a Red Seal chef, she said, and she started literally screaming at people.
Really?
And she got kicked out of there pretty fast.
Yeah.
And then she called the cops.
No.
And the cops came and had a look, but we had everybody lined up, properly spaced, one at a time at the table. Take what you touch. Any 3 or 4 items, there you go. Here's a bag if you need it. And the cop just came, had a look, didn't say anything, and walked away. But, the whole thing with gloves. So you put on a pair of gloves. Everybody's now wearing gloves. So as we're taking the containers of food out of and doing the chain to get them inside and pile them up, if one of those things of food has got some virus on it, and you just got it onto your glove, it doesn't matter if it's on your glove or on your finger. Yeah. Now it's going on to whatever else you touch. Exactly. But thankfully, there's no evidence that ever catches you the virus anyway. But it was just the level of insanity, the overreaction to things, the fear is so debilitating for so many people, and in this neighborhood, you've got to be careful about that.
I have a friend that owns a Panago in Mission. Right? She has her dad there, and he's a very old man, and he has to eat with his medication. So he took his mask off to eat with his medication. There was a customer in the store. Customer called Pinnacle head office and complained that an employee was in the store without a mask on, even though he was eating. So all they did was give the customer a $10 gift certificate next time. But like it's crazy. You know, crazy. In a restaurant we don't have to wear masks. So why would this lady have to think that she had to report this for this man? You know, like jeez.
They've scared a lot of people, and that's not very responsible. It's not a very good thing for our government to scare people in ways that make them overreact. And I mean, to be afraid of the virus is fine. I mean, that's fine. You know, always you didn't want to be swapping germs with people anyway to any great degree. You know, especially in this neighborhood. I mean, I always have had.
I wouldn't be kissing anybody in this. No, in this neighborhood. No.
I've seen where some of those lips go. So but I mean, that's true in all life, you know. I mean, you choose carefully who it is you get really close to, right? Yeah. So be smart, of course. There are viruses even before this and after this. There's always going to be. Be smart, but don't be stupid.
I have this daunting question. We've been wearing masks for over a year. How the hell are our cases going up? People say people not wearing masks. Well, it can't be everybody not wearing masks, right? But now the new variant apparently maybe can go through masks or something. I don't know.
Masks.
How are we doubling our cases?
I'm not anti-mask, but I'll tell you, looking into the whole mask thing, they're not effective. They're not effective for sure for people that are trying to not catch the virus because you're actually channeling in air at a much quicker rate through the little holes, around your mask. And if you've got it really tight to your face, then you're, sucking in hard to get that air. But if you can't keep a fart
with a pair of jeans on.
Yeah, with like 3 layers, I mean, and then it goes into the mask. I mean, come on. I mean, look into how big viruses are. Look into what the actual, filters are. I think they have some effectiveness.
That's great.
I think it's fine if you want to wear it. I think, with a pandemic, if you're in tight with a bunch of people indoors, I mean, probably you should have one on because, maybe there's some effectiveness there. But it's not like, wow. Anyway, I don't want to get into it because people are going to mishear what I just said.
We should get something like Depends, a little strip, and then put like the fragrant in it, so every time that somebody farts, the fart will go through the fragrance and it just smell like roses.
A new type of underwear.
Yeah, new type of underwear.
For farters.
You just have a little extra lining. You just slip it in there, take it out when you do your laundry, change it up. We can even get Febreze to do it.
I was just going to say,
Febreze sheet in there. We just solved the whole thing for you.
No. And you make money from it, let me know. Yeah.
If you're a bean eater, and you're losing friends, try a Febreze treat.
Get back to us. Let us know if it worked.
We just saved you a whole bunch of money and friends. Love to do that on the THC show. We find the truth eventually, right? We get right down to the nub of it.
Amity Grant there was asking me if the guy was standing on the corner in a cannabis G-string. No, it's just a plain G-string. Yes,
I didn't look close to see. I didn't look close to see what kind of G-string.
I saw a black line across his back. That's all.
There's images you really don't want in your brain. You learn that in this neighborhood.
Yes.
Look away quick. Many times. So I saw what was going on there. I did realize the gist of it.
Yes, that was pretty
clothes
good.
are not essential anymore.
No.
And
food is.
Right at the heart, like heading into summer. Isn't that an awesome thing? Yeah, your government has decided that clothes are not essential anymore. Wow. Some of that I might like, and some of that I might not.
Yeah, if you're not wearing clothes, I guess you're not carrying COVID.
They're not going to believe that for a minute. Oh boy!
Oh my God!
So what do we need to talk about? What do we got here? You're almost past your time already.
Yeah, next week we're going to be hopefully having a sunny day.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to. At least it's not raining on our little whatever.
I will be down there. I will let you know for sure.
Yeah, I want to go see what's going on. I mean, this is the cannabis story as it's unfolding, and I suspect
this is not an official protest, but it is sort of like
420 is a protest always just by its very date and its history.
So people were getting it confused.
There's many different ways to protest.
Yes,
I think that maybe at Pot TV they're going to be rebroadcasting the year when we could have the last one where Cypress Hill was there. That would be awesome.
That would be cool. Yes.
There's lots of things that you can do. I mean, there's letters. You can just decide that you're pissed off that you still have to protest stuff and just write a letter on that day while you're smoking a big fatty.
Will Pot TV be doing their show next week?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And you might be my cameraman.
Yes.
We haven't worked out deals details yet.
No problem.
We might have a Neil back in the studio looking after the rebroadcast.
Yes.
That's just a thought. We're not sure yet.
Okay,
but we'll be doing something. And I felt that the beach was the place to be.
Yep.
If there was nothing going on there, that would be something to report.
Yep.
If there's something going on there, then we want to let people know about that on Pot TV.
Yep.
And I suspect what we're going to find is that people are acting responsibly and trying to speak properly to the issues.
I just know that they had 100 people for the farmers at the art gallery sleeping outside for the whole night. So why can't we have 100 people?
Well, there's been lots of tight groups out there protesting.
Yes. So
in the name of protest, I mean, this is important. If I didn't think it was important, I wouldn't probably be supporting it at all.
Yeah. Last year was a little bit different because it was brand new with COVID, but this year we can manage it a bit better.
Last year COVID hit us out of nowhere.
Yes.
All of a sudden, we can't have 420. Kind of like at the last minute there. It was in early March when it all hit here.
Yeah.
And so that now plans are off. No more meetings for 420. Now we got to figure out what we can do, what we are going to do. Those were early days into the whole idea of doing Zoom and what have you. But we decided that we could do a coast-to-coast 420 ring-in, from the Pot TV studios, including all the other places across Canada that were, the different time zones.
Yeah.
And, it was fine for what we had to work with.
We had Jay Frost, he started it in Newfoundland, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
So, all right. So I'm going to kick you out of here and bring Jerry
we'll see you next week.
And we'll see you
Hopefully
next week.
Hopefully on a sunny day.
And you and I will chat about how we're going to do that and what we're going to do.
Sounds good. All right.
Cool. Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah.
Check out
CannaMatch.ca.
I was going to say, but I was confusing your two.
For the next week, we're going to give 420 credits to anybody who signs up.
All right, CannaMatch.ca. If you don't know what that's about, it's a great place to meet other people that are like-minded when it comes to cannabis.
Yes.
Whether you be traveling or isolated at home or whatever it is, CannaMatch.ca can find you some friends. Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, no problem.
So that brings us to the next segment of the show, which is the Jerry Martin medical moment. And this is a segment of the show where we follow the journey of Jerry Martin, a dispensary owner from Whitewood, Saskatchewan, on his way to the courts, hopefully to get a day in court to talk about his raid that happened 4 years after he had been helping his community get access to medical cannabis through all the tightest protocols because it was Saskatchewan and because that was the times we were living in. Jerry had a medical dispensary where everybody had to be supported by a confirmation of diagnosis by a doctor, and was hoping to be included into the mainstream. When legalization happened, that's what Trudeau said would happen, is that the medical patients, their needs would be looked after. They wouldn't have to worry about things. And of course, that would include a storefront that medical patients could go into and get a variety of quality cannabis products and some medical advice. But instead, Trudeau's legalization was not about that at all. He lied about that. It was about protecting corporate interests in providing non-medical cannabis to people at the enforced exclusion of the medical cannabis storefront. So that's something that we very much needed to have. We were happy to have it, even if it was illegal, for all the years that there were illegal dispensaries across Canada. Jerry's was one of those. And like I said, he wanted to be included into a mainstream world where he would be just another business on the street corner and people could walk into a storefront and have their needs met. But instead, he was ordered to shut down, which is cruel and unusual to say the least, because if you're a dispensary owner, not just, I mean, it's true here in Vancouver as well, but in a small town, you really get close to the people that you're helping. You understand you're helping them in profound ways. You're helping them get something that they can't otherwise access anywhere else. And so to be told that you're going to have to tell these people that you're not going to help them anymore is just unconscionable, not something that a human being with any kind of ethics could do, certainly not a dispensary owner. And so Jerry continued on until they came and arrested him and took away his properties and charged him. And he's been trying to pursue his day in court for over 4 years now. It was 4 years ago last November that all happened. And he's been in and out of court 40-some times. Trying to find out, what's going to happen. They've been threatening him with incarceration for much of it, and now it's a huge fine, loss of, many thousands of dollars worth of property. And all of this may be coming to some sort of an end as we reach the first of two parts, the second part to be done in September. But the first one is coming right up this April 26th, 7th, and 8th. So Jerry Martin is so good to come and visit us on the show and let us know what's going on. And how are you today, sir?
Good.
Getting excited? I asked you that last week
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Boy, it comes fast, eh?
Yeah.
I know.
Less than 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Starting anyways.
And so you're going to be doing that from Vancouver?
I still don't know.
Well,
I'll be doing it from Vancouver. I just don't
Vancouver.
know if it's from home or I've got to go to some place in the courthouse or something.
Right. That would feel a little bit better if you could do it from some place in the courthouse, probably, right? There should be a stenographer there or something.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
At home you can smoke.
Yeah, I know you can smoke weed, yeah.
Good point, right?
I don't think they'd give you trouble for that.
I'm in court smoking a joint.
I don't think I'd be doing that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
No.
Just because the judge would frown on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But fuck the judge for frowning on it.
Yeah,
Weed's legal.
It's a medicine.
You know,
Yeah.
why
Yeah,
not? You know, if that's what you
medicine,
feel like you want to do as a human being, you know,
Doug Sikora
no
was able.
disrespect intended, right?
Yeah.
Doug Sikora was able to do it when he was in court with Michelle for his WCB. The judge knew that he had an ACMPR or an MMAR, and the judge allowed him to stop court and go and smoke. Doug has said that so many times on his video.
Nice.
So it might not be disrespectful.
Well, stopping court going out's different from.
Yes, because then it was his medicine,
Yeah.
right? Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and the last thing you want to do is let the judge think that you're disrespecting him.
Yes.
You know, in court.
Yes.
Because they have ultimate
Her in this
power.
case.
Her.
Oh, it's a
Her. There's immediate disrespect right there. Sorry about that, Your
One
Honor.
of the charm.
He's got a foot in already.
I hope the judge will be honorable.
I hope he's about 35.
You can get her bias going the other way. Yeah, I hope that there will be an honorable judge and that they'll understand the situation.
So the Herald Sun called today.
Yeah,
Lane Ashfield, which I know very well, and donated to her many times
nice.
for the golf course and whatnot.
It was worth it.
Apparently, they have 2 applications for dispensaries in Whitewood now. They put in a complaint that they weren't allowed to have one under 2,000 people. So apparently, that's working out.
I see.
So apparently, they're approving them both.
Nice.
Yeah, which is good.
It's good.
One is lied completely.
When it's-
But yes, she says they'll be able to fill all the medical needs and fill prescriptions from doctors, which is
with their online service.
well, which is totally untrue. I don't know. I guess they could do it with. I don't think they'd be able to fill prescriptions.
Well, I think that if you got a
I think they've
prescription,
got to go
I
through.
think if you have a prescription and you're allowed to buy from an LP, you could probably do it through their store.
I wonder if you can, because I think that LPs have control over that right now.
They would
don't
still
don't
probably
you?
have control over it.
Yeah, they have to
You know.
do it through mail order. I'm sure it's mail
And
order.
it probably still would be mail.
Yeah.
But they might just middle it for
Yeah,
you.
but I told her straight out, you know, they're not allowed to even talk about medical at this point, except for size, weight, and color at the time
That's
of sale. So,
Yeah.
but you know, good on
So
them.
how do the
I'm hoping they'll buy my building once I win.
So that's the dispensaries that aren't allowed to tell the customers about anything to do with
Yeah,
it.
they're not
What about
allowed,
the LPs? Because that's where a medical
Well,
patient orders their stuff from.
Yeah, I believe even LPs aren't really allowed to talk about anything. Like, as far as I know, I don't think they can.
You're just able to order.
They're allowed
you
to
know,
order it that they may be suggested by their
And,
doctor.
and
but
somehow the same LP weed that they're shipping to the stores that's non-medical
Right.
is the same weed that they're
Right.
shipping to the medical patients that are ordering it.
Yeah.
And somehow the weed going to this store is non-medical and the weed going to the patients
And,
is medical.
Yeah, and I guess the Reserve has a dispensary on it too.
I see.
Yeah, and she actually said she can understand why it's okay for them and not for me.
Exactly,
and I
that's
told
the
her,
whole point.
I told her you got to respect Indigenous rights and things like that, and then they have the rights to do it. So I told them proud on good on them, and
So
hope they
there's
do
some
well.
woman who's on behalf of the federal government going around and trying to get the different bands on board with collaboration with the government. on banning weed.
Oh no.
Yeah. But my indigenous friends, they know what that's all about. They
Yeah.
know what she's all about.
Yeah.
But she's in there. She's like a high-powered lobbyist
Oh yeah.
that's going and saying this is the way you do it.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Some suckers will figure it out.
the bands are split. You know, there's a
Yeah.
lot of differences on the bands about whether they even want it or not, and then in what form they want it.
Yeah.
I'm really wanting them to flex their muscle a little bit
Yeah.
to assert their independence.
Yeah. I agree.
And take charge of, because what the government's doing is wrong.
Yeah.
It's just so wrong. And
Yeah.
we're helping so many Indigenous people here on the downtown east side that the bands that represent here they know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And these people are telling them, this is what we need, this isn't what we're going to need.
Right.
So I'm really hoping that they'll recognize that if they go along with the government, that the prices are going to be out of reach for most daily users and medical users.
Yeah.
And that
Quality
it's
just
not the
won't
way
be
to
there.
do it. Yeah. They should control their own supply, and they should allow for access to medical cannabis, and they should let their healing experts be involved in
Yeah,
understanding
absolutely,
the plant medicine for
Yeah,
what
I
it is.
agree.
So I'm really hoping that happens in a lot more bands. I know it is happening in some, and we'll see whether she wins or not. But it's almost like that, almost like it is in the rest of Canada, where now there's still the underground market, there's still some illegal dispensaries going on, but there's all these government stores that are moving in more and more and more and more. And they're trying to get enough of a foothold
The monopoly,
that they'll take it over.
Yeah.
And that's what, is sort of my fear, not just here in Canada, but around the world, as different jurisdictions are now legalizing. They're following models where it's tightly controlled as far as production goes, and the price is still way up there. And this is not what should be happening with legalization. Legalization should make cannabis a plant like any other plant, except one that you can grow expensively. You can grow it expensive.
Sure,
You can,
yeah.
lots of people do. And lots of people are real expert growers, and that's worth a lot of money too.
Yeah.
So there's connoisseur cannabis that's always going to be
But
available.
if you're growing it for yourself, it shouldn't be expensive.
Oh, not
You
at
know,
all.
and if you're growing it for a community,
That's right.
as a community project, it would be a lot cheaper instead of just a corporation. Yeah.
And the poor people deserve to have access as well.
Yeah.
And that can be done
Yeah,
easily
yeah.
with not... And connoisseur weed is nice on a whole bunch of different levels, but it isn't that much more, if at all, more potent than what you could just grow without all the fancy equipment. You
Right.
can grow really good potent
Right, there's
weed.
different processes,
you know.
like organic live soil is a big thing right now. You
Yeah.
know, no chemicals, it's all produces its
So,
own.
they've got a little bit of advantage. Maybe it's a little bit better. They're going to
it's
tweak the
pretty good.
terpenes. It's
Yeah,
pretty
it's-
damn good. But my point is, you can get pretty damn good weed too.
Yeah.
And poor people deserve that.
Yeah.
They at least deserve that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't take that much to produce it.
Oh, plant prices are super cheap right now.
The who?
Weed prices are really down right now.
So what's down?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah,
down?
Anywhere from $400 to $2,000 a pound, depending on the quality, right? You know,
Right.
what I've
Like,
seen,
so what other industry, and you've maybe heard me rant about this before, but what other food crop or vegetable crop or herb crop are farmers producing where anybody's talking about anything by the pound?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Or by the gram,
Yeah.
or by the ounce.
Yeah.
It's by the ton typically, or it's by the huge 50-pound wad. It's pennies on the pound
Yeah.
for most things that people grow, be it lettuce or squash or cabbage.
Well, at the rate of quality they're putting in, it's pretty cheap. Now, some of them, I gotta say, Clint Young's been posting some pretty nice looking cannabis pics.
Yeah, there's some really good cannabis.
Yeah, so there's some good growers
I
out
just
there
think
in
the
the
price is
legal
too high.
industry, but yeah, they are too high. Yeah.
Well, just that you should be able to get it. Good cannabis, when you buy it right off the plant.
Yeah.
They just chop like the top 1.5 foot off
Yeah.
off the branch,
Yeah.
bunch
Don't
it all
care what's
together,
on, but you
tie
like
it up, and put it out for market.
Yeah.
Even $20 a pound
Yeah.
would be expensive for anything else that's in that same
You know, like pick
supermarket.
your own blueberries, just pick your own buds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Boy, pick your own buds, eh?
Yeah. That'd be great.
It sounds so far-fetched,
Yeah.
because we've decided that bud is so valuable.
Yeah.
But you could just as easily have that big field of pot plants as you could blueberry plants.
Isn't that farm gate for next year? It's going to be played from farm to plate.
Yeah,
We're
farm
gonna be able
isn't-
to go
farm
right to the
isn't-
farm and buy it right
Yeah,
from
but
there.
farm isn't you going out into the fields and picking your buds.
No, but it'll be freshly picked that day.
It's that you can go and purchase it, and also the dispensaries would be able to then purchase directly from the farm instead of going through the government LPs. I really hope they change the whole system a whole lot.
Yeah.
A whole lot. So, because it's not right now at all. So many regulations for no good reason at all.
Yeah.
This is not a dangerous commodity in
No,
our environment.
not at all.
This is a beneficial commodity in our environment.
And it's healthy.
This helps people.
Yeah.
This helps people in a variety of different ways.
Not just that bud, even the leaf. You can use the leaf in a
Oh,
salad
you-
as fiber.
Absolutely,
right?
you can
Yeah.
juice
Yes.
the plants,
And
and
get
it's
THCA,
fantastic
right?
in smoothies, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. And it
But
doesn't-
the cannabis smoking itself, concentrates, all the rest of it. Hey, you got a chill going on. All of that stuff, none of that stuff is any concern for governments to get involved because people are harming themselves.
Yes.
There is no damage being done to people or society by people consuming cannabis.
Yep.
It is not something that needs to be tightly regulated at all. In fact, it's the opposite of that.
Nice.
So that's my point.
Yeah.
And the opposite, I mean that.
Yeah.
The government should be making sure that this is easily available. They should remove barriers for people getting access. There's no need to tax it because there's no cost to society involved in people using it.
Yeah.
It's not hurting our society. No taxpayer
Right,
has
all the infrastructure is paid for by the supplier, the grower. So yeah, what's the tax?
Yeah,
Unless they were actually going to use it for like mental health, like they said they were gonna, but I still don't think they have. No.
well, use what, the money for
Their
mental
own
health?
mental health.
Yeah, they want to.
Find themselves, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, getting the governments out of the red, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, at least we got the cannabis to keep us afloat now, you know.
Government employees.
Probably why they deemed it an essential service.
Yeah.
Was, you know, because they needed the tax money from weed to offset all the other costs. Probably the CERB is mostly paid for with people
Cannabis
drinking
sales.
alcohol and smoking weed,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it does start
But
to see.
yeah, no. If we could reset, and all of a sudden we're just a bunch of smart people that have come together in the community, and we want to have some public servants look after education and roads and defense or whatever. And hey, what do we want to do? We want to make sure everybody gets that herb real easy because it seems to help a lot of people, and it's really expensive right now, so people can't afford it. But when people that are poor, when they come across a half a joint laying on the road, it makes their fucking day.
Yeah.
Holy shit. When we give out joints to people, they're just like, they can't believe it. That's such a wonderful thing that we did for them.
Well,
So the government should be doing that.
Outside the clouds for all, because all the roads used to be there in the morning.
Yeah, people aren't trying to run away and hide from the scary marijuana plant. They're trying to find it, trying to get it. They would like to pay, to get it cheaply and reasonably because it helps people. It really helps people. In a very stressful world, it's really good to smoke a joint once in a while and calm down. And, so yeah, here we go. So, court coming up?
Court's coming up, 26, 28.
13.
Yeah.
Going to be like a preliminary run through of a bunch of stuff?
Well, it's just going to be cross-examination. Some of the affidavits got approved that we need to cross-examine them. Like Dr. Price is getting cross-examined. I think it's Justin Seaman from Weyburn, and Pat will get cross-examined.
So the witnesses will be there on the Zoom?
Nope, I don't believe so. Only the ones that are getting cross-examined.
That's what I mean. Those witnesses getting
they'll be on
cross-examined,
Zoom,
they'll be coming from someplace wherever they
video
are.
Conference.
Maybe in a courtroom, maybe at home,
Yeah.
maybe smoking a joint, maybe not.
Right.
And they'll be cross-examined through the video
And
links.
then they'll see if they.
You get to watch.
They want. Oh, I don't know if I get to watch or not, but they get to. Then the court will decide whether or not their testimony is admissible or not.
So the public doesn't get to watch.
No, I don't think so.
I want to know if that's the case.
Yeah, I
soon.
don't know, because if Pat's got a publication ban, I don't. I don't think Seaman would either. I think his name's Justin, but I'm not. I can't.
They may tell you before the proceeding.
Yeah.
There may be a little blurb about you're not allowed to retransmit.
Right.
Yes, when Neil did his, there
They
was
did that with us.
only if you had permission, if you were in the press and you had permission to do that, then you were allowed to, but we were not allowed to rebroadcast any of it.
Right.
Even though we taped it, we still
My
have it.
Facebook event
for
coming up, $5.
Yeah.
You find Brian Carlisle, fellas?
Sorry?
Brian Carlisle's outside. He probably doesn't know how to get through the gate.
I'll get him.
So but it's going to be like that. It's going to be like a bunch of Zoom back and forth.
Basically, and then they'll approve and disapprove or whatever. Maybe get them to change things. And
so
then,
what about the media now? Because the media would typically be in a courtroom.
Right.
Will the media be able to watch this? Will they be able to, put out Twitter messages about what's going on?
So I know Guy Quinnell, I think his name is, from CBC's following it. Whitewood's obviously following it, the Herald Sun. Other than that...
So if they're following it, you would think that they would be able to be
I would
in
think
on
so.
the thing.
Either that or a lot of times they'll call it the courthouse after it's done and get the gist or the transcript or...
Get the gist, eh?
Yeah, what's going on. Kind of like the mistake when they made, when they said it was all thrown out. Remember that? that radio did a big broadcast of how my charges got dropped and everything's they called up at the courthouse. Oh, yeah. Geez, I was. Yeah, they didn't even apologize. They did.
Neither side.
They did kill the mayor of Lakeland on it. So, that dog's not that guy. He was fearful.
Well,
so
I don't know.
In the end, we're getting some cannabis dispensaries anyways. So.
In Whitewood, they're going to put in some couple new government cannabis dispensaries.
Government. Well, all I said was, that's great. I just hope they do the same thing for the communities.
And you know they won't.
And you know they won't.
No, they won't.
No.
But the very fact...
it's okay, because they're going to keep going and knock on their door and say, hey, can you help me? Can you help me? Jerry did.
But the very fact that they would now open dispensaries there after putting you through what they put you through, I mean, it's just so ludicrous that they can say, well, this guy was selling weed to the people in the community, and he's a real criminal for that, and we're going to use a whole bunch of your tax dollars. We're talking millions of dollars here to make sure that we punish him correctly on your behalf. And now these people, they're going to sell you cannabis. They're not going to do it as good as Jerry did. They're not going to be as careful about what they're selling.
70% chance of mold, but...
and no care about the patient or anything, not medical, even
no money back guarantee.
So
no
it's okay.
Wednesday.
Yeah, it's okay that they're doing that. I mean, we're doing that, Oh man, it's
nothing for free. No discounts.
No, you can't even look at it. You just gotta trust us. There's something in this package besides a pencil.
There is never. Has there ever been a more ridiculously hypocritical, like upside down wrong thing going on in the world?
Use clear packaging so we can see the shit.
Why not? Put it behind plexiglass if you have to, I guess.
It's already in the store. Nobody's going to see it.
What's wrong with smelling the weed?
If you saw it, you probably
they gotta have one of those little arrows like you use for my bath fizz. You just push and smell,
It's
still
they have those.
there.
They have that technology.
My joint there.
I just lifted my foot. I didn't want to take a chance. Exactly. No, it's exactly. That's what people want. They want to be able to look at and smell their weed.
And ask questions.
And ask questions. To have somebody there who knows something. Exactly.
Just pay the extremely high price and don't ask me anything.
Tell what are people saying about
I don't know anything because I'm not allowed to know anything.
I don't think there's ever been any situation more wrong and backwards. I mean, maybe because there's been some real atrocities in the world over time. But the amount of damage done with this war on this plant to keep it from being used because it's not patentable, like these other products that they could patent and sell people, from pharmaceuticals to all sorts of things.
And to criminalize people
to
doing the
criminalize.
same thing you're doing is hypocritical and disrespectful.
In a drunk society, to criminalize the people who would prefer to peacefully consume some magical vapors and feel better. It's just so. It could have. That's what I mean. I don't know of anything that could be even any more ridiculous and criminal. I mean, this alcohol society that we have here, it's everywhere. I mean, you just see the advertising, the glorification, the availability of alcohol is just everywhere. And, we have a lot of problems with alcohol. As a society, you can still see it, maybe not so much now on a Friday night on the Granville Strip or in Gastown here on a Saturday night because those clubs are all shut down now. So, but only because of COVID.
No, you don't see it
now. You don't see it because of COVID. But pre-COVID, you could still see it. You could see it on the Granville Mall, and you could see it in Gastown on any Friday or Saturday night. You could see the fights, the violence, the people that are just smashed on alcohol, the police and all the different scuffles. It's just ongoing all the time in this big city. But as a society,
get off alcohol, you're just psychedelics.
So much of it is hidden. The people that are over-consuming alcohol to their own serious detriment, and not just to them, but to their families, right? And now it's all behind closed doors. People are buying more alcohol than they ever were. And now it's all behind closed doors. And who knows what's happening to people as a result of the overconsumption of alcohol.
Yeah, being alone.
But it's a huge problem here. And yet, they tried prohibition, although that was really a farce designed to protect the fossil fuel industry, and so that's another whole long story. But the whole attempt at prohibiting alcohol resulted in an underground, easily available market through violent gangs and all sorts of horrible things because of that. Same with the prohibition of cannabis and other plant medicines. The amount of people shot, for example, 250,000 people at any given time in U.S. prisons because of non-violent cannabis offenses.
Ridiculous sentences. Life in prison for joints and shit.
Yeah, third offense and you're out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fuck you, whoever thinks they have the authority over any free human being to put them in a cage because they decide that what they want to do here, which isn't hurting anybody, is something that they want to do.
Yeah.
Fuck you, whoever you are out there. Sorry, Auntie Barbie, but Jesus, and there I go again. I mean, oh man. If you're watching the show, Auntie Barbie, I'd like you to call me. I was looking for your number the other day and I don't have it, and I'd like to talk to you. I know you don't want to talk to me now that I'm swearing on the show again. But these are really, really, really important things. These are life and death issues that have cost our society an unfathomable amount of pain and grief and money, and we would have advanced our society so much beyond where we are now if we hadn't spent the last 10 or 11 decades fighting over, wasting our resources and time and energy and concentration on whether or not somebody's, feeling better,
Basically controlling the masses, keeping them slaves.
Oh, man.
That's all they're doing.
What a great society we would have if we as people could be free to live our lives without this constant distraction and interference and attempt to co-opt our minds, And which kind of brings me to what you've been working on lately, the whole microdelics thing and the Freedom of Thought project. Are you calling it that? Are you calling it that?
No, that's a really good name, the Freedom of Thought project. Yeah, so that'll be through MindTech.
Right.
Yeah. So I had a meeting yesterday actually. Some investor guys and stuff. They're talking about putting up $1 million and getting me on the IPO and stuff. So I get a meeting with the lawyers again Thursday. Right. Hopefully that goes through. I don't know. I gotta see what they want. It makes all the difference.
You'll know more after the meeting.
Yeah, but it looks like it's moving forward again a little bit here, so which is nice. So,
And all resistance is futile.
Yeah.
And any attempt to block will just expand.
I think it's best they took my time and backed away from the original deal. I think it would have done very well that way. It was just
But it's all learning. I mean, it's good that you can change in process, right?
Yeah. Well,
I
the ethical part of it is super important for me when I'm running a business. I want to run it a particular way for particular reasons.
Yeah.
So if I can't get that, then it's just not. I don't think it's good.
And you have an end goal. You have an end goal in mind.
Yeah.
You know what you're trying to achieve. But the way to get there, will change as time goes on. And if you're able to respond to those changes and react accordingly, then you should be able to continue on towards the goals. Right? A lot of people get set on not just the long-term goal, but on the method to get there. And sometimes the method to get there turns out to be not the right one. And they're so entrenched in that they won't shift gears a little bit and adjust a little bit. So it's really good that you can do that. And I'm glad you're on the case because I think you're a guy that gets things done, and that's what we need on this particular issue for sure. Yeah. So hopefully that all works out. That'll be probably a little bit down the road, but it's starting anyway. So. Right. Yeah. And so right now you have just the website, microdelics.ca. And mindtech.ca if you want to check out Mindtech Therapeutics. Yeah. And so as far as getting access to microdosing, that's through... Microdelics. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good stuff. And I see you got a vehicle that you're going to wrap and take to shows eventually in the future. Well, I'm getting a truck wrap. They're working on it right now. And then I got the camper trailer today. Nice. So I might wrap that as well. And then we'll take it to trade shows and things like that. And conferences. And camping. I'm sure it'll be a far out thing to see when you're camping. Just driving that around. You're stumbling through the woods, and you see the campfire in the distance, and you come out and there's
Oh, mine's gonna be all tripped out of this here.
Come on in. Come on in.
Lights and
Have a
shit
seat
going
by the
on
fire.
there.
You know,
Yeah.
here's a choice of things for you.
Yeah.
Your trip is just beginning.
Yeah, I'm trying a lot of different things lately. Got a whole new bunch of products. So
Nice.
I try them all at high doses to make sure everyone's going to be
That's right.
safe.
These things need to be tested.
Yeah.
Testing is
I
important.
test them for you first.
Yes,
You're the guinea pig.
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Freedom of thought, freedom of mind.
Yeah.
It's a great thing.
Yeah. Neurogenesis.
And so next week we'll be just a couple days away from the actual thing. I don't know if
Yeah.
we'll see if you can come on the
Yeah.
show at that time.
Yeah, I'm on. Maybe because they're an hour ahead, so it should be pretty close. I don't think we'll probably be in court at 5:30 or like.
Well, but that's on the 26th, right?
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday,
So Monday,
Wednesday.
Tuesday, so the Tuesday. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll let you know. Yeah.
Tuesday's 420.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this next Tuesday's 420.
It's the 20th.
26.
No,
26.
next
Yeah.
Tuesday's the 20th.
Yeah.
So you'll still be available.
That's right.
Oh, yeah,
That's
next
right.
week.
So
Yeah.
next week you'll still be
Yeah, I'll
available.
still be here.
Very good. We
Yeah.
look forward to the update
Yeah.
before the deed.
Yeah.
All right, Jerry. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. Quite a journey watching Jerry go through all of this. It's been a long time, many years. The last most of the last decade has been tied up with his journey of deciding first to try to give back to his community and try to help people get access to coming up against a corrupt government, and now still trying to get his day in court. And next up on the show, I have a guest. You're not my stage producer. You're not supposed to. Don't even do what he says. I'm going to have to kick you out of here. That's not how it works. Hi, Brian. You almost got an introduction, but somebody decided that you should just crash the show instead. This is Brian Carlisle, and Brian's been an activist trying to do the similar things to what Jerry was doing along maybe different paths, but similar paths for sure, because we're all on similar paths with the end goals in mind. And Brian's been working for many, many years on the cannabis file, if you will, and other things to do with human rights and people's, the way that we're treated here. And I guess I'll let you speak for yourself for the most part then on what that's all about. So tell me a little bit about your history and how it all started for you, if you can.
Well, before I start, I have a couple things I wanted to do, and being that I'm an old fella too, I write them down myself so I can make sure I got them. So
He deserves a much better introduction, by the way. He's done a hell of a lot of things, from dispensaries to running,
Here we go.
church. Anyway,
I want to. Okay.
we'll get to all of
I
that.
want to get to the more important issue about Neil here.
Oh,
I
Paul,
want to say on behalf of everyone in our movement, I call struggle, thank you for your tireless, relentless pursuit to save the lives of our green brothers and sisters, and being the vanguard of this most important movement. And for that, I want to give Neil, of course, a cannabis pin, because he needs to have a pin whenever he's dressed up a bit. When he eventually, I'm hoping, gets his exemption,
I'm going to dress up on that day for that announcement.
I hope so. But I have something also for his team who kick butt out there every day. And
They do.
I love the fact that there was a little pre-log about vans, about Jerry and his vans. So I went out and I went and got of course, the proper van.
The new reefer van.
The Scooby-Doo
The
van.
Scooby-Doo van, and I didn't even open it, so you can personalize it with your team, can personalize it, and it can be part of your memoirs, part of your backdrop. I don't know.
Thank you
but
very much.
I can,
thank
I
you.
can see
Oh,
that
Thank
green.
you.
Wow.
Thank you so much for everything.
I'm going to have guests on my
Thank you.
show more often, right?
Well, I don't think enough people get to say how much we appreciate what you do, and
thank you,
it's
Brian.
super
That's
important.
fantastic.
It's you.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
It's you, right?
Scooby-Doo.
It's
You
you.
can put that green weed leaf on top of it there.
We're going to wrap that van one day. We're going to do
And I
some
want
really
you to-
cool things with that RV
I
one
want
day.
you to personalize it in any way you want, because it's a
Nice.
story that so few can speak to that you've done. And my own story goes, and it's funny because I look back who my real teachers were, and they were the people they should have been. They were my mom, they were my dad, they were my aunt, and they taught me as a young boy what it was to be an oppressed group, and I didn't really get it.
Where
at
were you
first.
born? Where were you brought up?
Okay, so Montreal is where I'm officially born. Now, being an orphan, I don't know for sure. I've had time to try to just research, but they only know about the week I was born in Montreal. So about the week of October, first week of October in 1969. So my basket was found on St. Catherine's Boulevard, right out front of the Catherine Booth Hospital.
Wow.
And luckily somebody called in the band. So here's my story. So I was finally adopted, thank God, and raised by a mother who was blind, and who had 20 brothers and sisters, and her closest one at the time, who also lived in Montreal, my Aunt Bernice, was stricken with MS. And they showed me, without really saying a word, what it was to be part of that minority. You know, they took me to, we would participate in things in the community the best we were able to, but other than, there was of course no such thing as ramps or elevators or any kind of accommodation of any kind. So we had to physically take my aunt, and I had to personally always walk my mom into these places and deal with, of course, the worst was, I could see the look, why are you bringing those kind of people in here? And they would sure enough come up with the manager and ask to please go outside, you're upsetting our other people. And eventually we started, as a kid, I say my aunts really did it, and they were part of this thing, this great movie about it called Crip Camp, but the disability revolution, the actual decision by a very oppressed minority, but the largest minority in North America, they decided enough's enough, and they were going to take the oppression, and they decided to crawl on Washington and they created, obviously, by 1990, legislation that had what's more important than an anti-discrimination part of it, because all the rest didn't matter. If an organization, and of course the stupid legislation being federal, every non-federal related money-getting organization didn't have to comply with it anyway. So it just really showed that minority was allowed to be treated, and really treated badly. And so, it didn't take long. I luckily, the school I was in at the time.
So how old are you around this time when
Eight.
You're 8 years old.
My
and
parents
they're
actually-
doing a crawl on Washington.
I didn't. I'm not old enough, but that's what.
But you were witnessing all of this.
Well,
it was impressing on your life. For
How
sure.
could it not, right?
Yeah, for sure. And they achieved, pretty good stuff with what they did there.
Well, they created the American Disability Act and the anti-discrimination part of it that actually made it so if any organization tried to. In fact, we know that movie Philadelphia so well. That specifically movie, he sued under that legislation and the HIV part of it. Specifically, that's how he got his $4.5 million, which is now about $120 million in today's dollars. And that's specifically how he sued, because in that case, it's supposed to be in any business that gets any kind of funding of any kind, public or not, and in that case, that was a law firm, obviously, decided to try and discriminate publicly. And reality is it became where it had to stop. I actually realized that when we were raising money, my idea was, I got together with a girl named Julie Rice. I don't know if she's out there in Vermont. By this point, let me clarify. October crisis kicks in Quebec, and my family, who didn't speak French, and I didn't speak English yet, freaked out, and they basically found a way to refugee our whole family into America. So we moved from Montreal to Vermont, almost overnight. And now I had to learn, and now all of a sudden I'm involved with the American version where my Aunt Jenny and my other American versions of this, because these are all British expats that had moved to North America, and now they were dealing with their version of discrimination, and it was ridiculous. And the school that I was in, Randolph Union, basically saw, like I did, that it was wrong. And so we actually, a lot of us in the school, we came up with fundraising ideas. My fundraising idea with Julie, we came up with a group we called Finger Singers. And what we did is we memorized all kinds of sign language. And then we applied it to different really popular songs, and we would put together little dance routines. And inevitably, we actually went around going to deaf schools, and we would perform for them. And, perform the move, sometimes the dance. In fact, we did, for example, Van Halen jump and stuff like that. And we did the actual move, jump, while we would jump. And, deaf kids just thought it was wonderful. We even did a few Special Olympics up on the mountain.
I'm sure deaf kids would think that was wonderful.
You know, I thought, why shouldn't they get entertained like everybody else? Why just because you can't hear? You know, it's right now I think about all those people that I thought had all those rights to be hearing and in public now are like this. So they lived their whole life reading their whole life through people reading their mouths, and they're now blind again.
Right.
We've basically created a huge discrimination against every minority who has trouble hearing and speaking.
Right.
And we've forgotten about it, of course, because there's
just
much more pressing issues, I know, and I get that, but why are we allowed to crush down the oppressed even further? And I see that by Neil specifically, his group, which I believe to be a part of, our green brothers and sisters that are not just in a movement anymore, they're in a struggle. Because when your life is going to end any minute, it's not a movement, it's a struggle.
Yeah, exactly.
And we are on that cusp, and you stand there every day watching it, living it, bearing them, just like I do. Steve, all of our closest friends, we bury and we keep going and we fight with these. I actually don't even want to use my own words, you know. But I wanted to hold on. I have a few other thoughts I wanted to talk about.
You're going to get lots of time.
Please. So, if you know, literally, I ended up lucking out and finding my way, eventually graduating high school twice, and lucking out, getting into Ivy League University, and you know, paying my own way. And of course, as a disabled university student, I really understood what it was to be afflicted in higher learning. And as I started to research through case law, and I found, of course, Philadelphia case, the Beckett case, but then, of course, where are all the other cases? There's so few great, just most of these companies just settle. They don't want a precedent of any kind, and that's why we need...
Because at this point in your life, law is kind of the focus of yours,
Well, injustice was the focus, and I knew that the only ingredients to fix that was law training. And that's unfortunately where I figured out, and I had worked in the field on and off in the bailiffing industry, collection industry, and actually I worked with a really good lawyer, Suzanne Patterson, and she beat me into, you have to go to law school, doesn't matter, and she explained to me she had gone through being a disabled teacher. She had done her degree in teaching and had been extremely disabled and was unable to go back. And she decided she couldn't go back to teaching, so why not become a lawyer? And she went to UBC, got her 3.5-year degree, and boom. By her 70s, she was practicing law and had practiced and I worked with her in their 70s and 80s, and just blew me away what the brain can do if it's properly guided. But, you know, what she pushed me, you know, you can't look at, you can't, you know, by that point I was in a scooter. I wasn't really walking very well, and it showed. You show up in the court in a scooter, and people are like, look, you know, what's going on here? Today we have wonderful disabled lawyers and people in court you see, and you think, wonderful. But back then, if you looked like that, it was just how long before it's not allowed in the building? I mean, that's how people thought. And here we are with the same, I mean, the issue is as if we didn't finish the disability discrimination laws by adding in this new medical marijuana issue. And we've just added a new one to compound and to make us be aware that they really didn't have disability rights in Canada at all. In fact, the Human Rights Code is our fixer-upper for not having anti-discrimination legislation. That's our plan, is to have a code that creates a little accommodation but actually doesn't fix the discrimination. So we just perpetrate it again and again, indirectly on everyone and anyone, and we just allow that. And that's my real question.
And they can get away with it.
And my question
is... get away with all of this. It's just... The discrimination against this group that I'm representing here is just incredible. I mean, holy shit. These are people that are seriously disabled in the lives that they find themselves in, and they need help, and yet our government not only turns their back on them, but hangs them out as scapegoats to justify bad policy. I mean, it's so criminal. So when did your focus become something more to do with cannabis?
So it would have been when I lived in Vermont, visiting my aunt in New Hampshire and hearing about this new U.S. Medical Cannabis Federal Act that they were creating, right? The National Institute of Drug Abuse and everything they were talking about, creating an act, and they had a few patients. They have up to 8 patients on the list. My aunt had MS. She was totally ready for an applicant, and then all of a sudden, Mr. Reagan stopped the applications and ended it. And it's still, I think it's 7 now that are on that 300 joints a day, a month,
Right.
sorry, yes.
That's
So that's
very
when I learned about that. And my aunt, because I remember how happy my aunt was saying, oh my God, I'm going to be able to get cannabis. Oh my God, I'm going to, and I
So
just,
she was part of that program.
well, absolutely, right? Like this was what was fantastic is having, having a family that lived across the border either way. As cannabis was becoming medical, my Aunt Pat's a great example. Auntie Pat LaRock, I hope she's there. She lives in Lac de la Petite Poile. She's one of my favorite. She was disabled and kept it quiet to me the whole time. But in reality she was more able than everyone. And she guided me every time. All these little things that I know now, back at the time, I totally didn't get it. I didn't understand. I was ambivalent. I was just a kid. I was just a young teen. But she, Brian, you got to think about these. You got to think. I would go to Montreal every summer and stay with her and do whatever and just speak French. And she would just continue to get this liberty, equality, fraternity mentality into me. You have to be that way. If you don't, what they did in 1877, it was for nothing. All those people died. All that changed was for nothing. Because that's when they realized that birth by right's bad. Okay, well, we get that. But then why do we still have a crown? Another question. I quote, my opinion, the greatest civil rights leader has always been the Reverend Minister Malcolm X. Because he not only sanctified his mission with his spirit, with his faith, and with his body, with his own blood, but in reality, he had the words that we struggle for now, but he said them to us. And what we were just talking about, what you said, I found a quote by him, specifically related to what we talk about, right? And it came out in April 12th, 1964, famous speech that we talk about forever. The ballot or the bullet. Give me liberty. Give me death. Because that's what we're dealing with anyway. And he said, this program of re-education, right? This economic control in our own community, right? We need to vote. Anytime we rely on our enemy for a job, we are in trouble already. We suffer. We are all sufferers and we are all the afflicted by political oppression, economic exploitation, social degradation, all from the same enemy of our green freedom. That right that we feel deep inside, but the person that taught us to hate that feeling, I say the person, but who,
and he said
who
black.
taught us to hate?
He said black where you said green. And he was certainly at the time speaking to some very, very serious oppression that had been happening systemically throughout America and what it meant to be a black person in America. And certainly the whitey was the enemy of those people. And, we have, there are similar parallels to the oppression of the cannabis consuming community, that we share there. And in our case, it's the greedy, and it is the green person and the green freedom that we're talking about here.
This isn't government. This is my own joint.
And you're right. That's very, very pertinent to what we're talking about there, because the level of oppression, the level of cost to us and our society and our families and our children is just horrendous, as has been the experience of a black person in America, over the last 400 years.
Was any oppressed minority, I would say.
I would agree.
We're looking at the.
It's not unique to them at all.
It's not unique. Oppressed minorities have been suffering all this time. They just never had anyone willing to give their life to tell us the ingredients of fixing it. And I gotta say, the famous saying he said, I call it BAMN, by any means necessary. And we know those words. But did we really understand what Brother Malcolm was telling us? He was telling us, number one, examine the obstacles. Number two, determine the vision. Number three, find the resolve. Number four, explore the alternatives to dissolving such obstacles. Government green person legislation at this moment is designed for exploiting us for their own purpose, instead of seeking to liberate us and even acting as handmaidens of the prohibition continuing type police and corporate cannabis entities in our community. Yeah. In its determination to keep our green-loving brothers and sisters in a subservient position.
Amen, brother.
Amen. Malcolm said those words. You're right. He said black instead of green, but those
the principles are exactly the same.
You know, I've been reading his autobiography once again. He finished that 2 days before he was murdered in front of his children. And that autobiography told us what he needed to say, and he knew he was going to die. He said it, he wrote it in there, he lived with an automatic weapon. But we need to realize that the bullet or the ballot is truth. And you think back just a bit in our own history. The ballot we raised for someone in power at the moment, I'm not going to name names, but at that time, it was supposed to be a ballot for our way of living, for our green rights. We asked, we were lied to. Tell me why. Tell me why we voted this person. I don't understand.
Mind control, leverage, big money, no other choices. All of the sophisticated mechanisms at the behest of the people that are, in control of us and have been for all this time. It's their game. They got it all figured out, but it's a fluid situation, and it's not all under control. And they're wrong, and it's wrong. It's never been okay. It didn't. Back in the day, you could manipulate people like in these ways, but it was much, much simpler. You could be a king with the blood of God running through your veins and worshipped by your people, or they get their heads cut off if they don't. There was good incentive there to follow the king. But, all of these different regimes of control and power have never been right in what they're doing unless they're respecting the rights of the people that they're so-called in charge of or charged with being the overseers of. It doesn't matter who you are. Nobody is your boss. Nobody tells you what you can and cannot do if you're not hurting anybody else. If somebody's your boss, it's because they're paying you and you're in an agreement of some sort to do that. But all that is still within reason. This whole idea of us being subservient to these public servants, authorities in their minds, is ludicrous. That we would allow them to behave as if they were some sort of tyrannical dictator that had taken us over by force. We've literally been kidnapped by our own system that has been put in place for us at some other time and has been continually evolving with more and more legislation and more laws, less and less rights for us, more and more control and power for those that are in those positions, less and less accountability for them. They try to eliminate transparency as best they can while they say that they're trying to increase transparency, because that's the game. And it's the game we've been at for a very long time. There are powerful, rich forces that have figured out how to manipulate the masses of people, and they've been doing it forever in all these different ways. And it's not right, because it's never right. They don't have the right to do that. They just have the might, they have the power, and so they do it. And like I say, they have the sophistication. They're very clever and smart about how they control aspects of the media, influencing the courts and influencing governments and influencing all of these different things that they use. And there's so much more than that. Oh my God, we could talk for days about
you've quoted
the arms of
the
these.
next person I wanted to quote. You're quoting another great leader.
I'm not quoting anybody.
You don't have to. And that's what's so wonderful, Neil, is you live on the vanguard of a movement that is a struggle for some of us that you have recognized. And
I get it.
Again, I want to quote Gandhi, right? And again, an Oxford-trained lawyer who gave up all to fix the world. He said, "There have always been tyrants, inconquerable for a time, but always fall in the end. Always." And that's the beauty of active, non-resistance, non-cooperative
It's the fallout from the fall
provocateurism.
that is my concern. It's the fallout from the fall.
We can't have fallout anymore.
I mean, if we stopped all of the corruption right now, immediately the world would fall apart. I mean, because a lot of that stuff gets shit done. A lot of that stuff's just how it works. If we took all the money out of different areas that it's being used that are all generated by this drug war, so much of our society would collapse. They're all involved. The banks are involved. There's so much. So, whatever we do, in my mind, I hope that we can do it peacefully. That we can have some sort of a relatively peaceful evolution into a system that moves constantly forward towards what benefits us as people, as free people, because this is our system, and that's who it should be for. And that's the only system that should be imposed on that, is that which we impose on ourselves. And that system we impose on ourselves should not allow for any imposition against any individual in any way if they're not significantly interfering harmfully in somebody else's vision of themselves. That's just what freedom should be. And if we had a system where public servants recognized that their main goal was to protect the rights of each individual, and not groups except kids. Kids are their own special group. They deserve some special protection. But other than that, if every individual had the right to be themselves, do themselves, and not be, forced or coerced in ways that are unfair, then that would be the role of government in my mind, is to be a little bit of an arbitrator about when things are not fair, than when people are hurting other people. But otherwise, they have no business in our lives. They only do damage when they come into our lives for the most part. They always want a fee. They always want to, restrict or tax in ways that aren't in our benefit, but in the benefit of those that are in control of everything of us. And it's really too bad that it's come to this. But it has. It's been evolving over hundreds of years.
I was thinking about that today, and the access we have to this, fairness and non-discrimination that we feel as an oppressed minority. And I think about around the world, even the U.S. has this, as I mentioned, anti-discrimination legislation that enforces their equality. Here in Canada, we have to pay for our equality and freedom, and they call it tribunals and courts. And for some reason, they're not accessible to people that don't have money. They're only accessible to people who have money. So where are the rights and the human, civil, natural rights that we're supposedly given in a so-called democratic society?
So many people assume that we have these things.
The legislation is very clear that we do not. We have legislation.
And in practice, it's clear that we do not.
By financial investment, we have access to such rights, but they don't exist as like some kind of, in even the U.S. and France and Quebec, they have what's called a social contract that creates an inalienable right, and that right is given to you the moment you're born in this country. And that's what we want to believe we have here, and we should have. But we're living on a active parliament in the 80s that really was written badly then, that now is still left to interpretation, to courts that we must fund our venue for rights, which is insane. And we ask, why would it be set up such a way, a system set up, the court set up such a way, legislation? Because the people that really taught us to hate our beautiful plants, to hate sacred plants at all, the organizations, the ideology, if you will, that taught us those, are the same organizations feeding it to us now through both ends of the flame. One way, cannabis. Here, I got one of them. I brought one. I did. I thought I would remember. You can take it to 4 hours. Let it affect. Oh, here we. Okay. Adverse effects, and you may need medical attention. You're what?
It's a low quality joint.
But who would put such a thing on there that a person that's on chemo is going to use or not use or be in this conflict just by the container?
Yeah.
this shows it's not for our
That's right.
green community.
That stop sign with a pot leaf on it that I've converted to, because THC stops fentanyl.
You know, we
You
got
know.
we got a couple of ones here to look at.
Yeah.
This is a really old one.
But
so
I find that extremely insulting and obscene that they would do that.
It's literally, it's like basically making a stigmatized display against our community on packaging.
Where's the one for refined sugar?
Well, why
Where's the one for glyphosate? Where's the one for all these other things? Why don't they have stop signs with their leaf of their plant on it or whatever it is that the chemical? It's just insane.
Absolutely.
It's the continued stigmatization of a large group of people, for one thing, and it's all for profit. It's all for profit and greed.
It's the reason why we don't have actual entrenched rights is because we have so-called legislations that go backwards and forwards, like the same, as you call it, Prohibition 2.0, or is it 3.0? Because it's hard to say with the amount of crappy laws they've written in this program in 20 years, which it is, but was it ever going to be good to begin with? Did they ever want to work with us? And again, I have to think back to the workshop in February 28, 2000 in Ottawa, sitting there in this room with 100 other tables of people and hearing these agendas of we're going to do like the U.S. and there's going to be 10 patients on this program. And the moment I heard that, myself, and I saw Mr. Steve Bacon standing over there, and he just said, whoa! And we stood up, no. Just my own membership, I got thousands right now. What? And instantly, Ceaseless came walking straight at us to sit back. It was like, whoa! And we realized this was being run by federal governments, and that's it. And as soon as we walked out the door, I called the Ottawa Citizen and said, you've got to come here. They're going to try and make another American fake program. I'm not letting it happen. Just my own member. And I definitely, at that point in public, and I basically had usually worn an eye patch or some kind of disguise because working in the legal field is such a stigma. There probably still is. And so I don't work in it anymore. And that's, I knew that I had to be two different people, but at that point it was like I have no choice. I took it off my eye and I put it on here and I started doing hot knives in front of the media and said, this is medicine. You got to take it from the plant and it only comes in tiny little bits. And watch it. I'll show you. Here's an ounce. I'll put it in there. You go. That's how much you get. So there's the medicine. That's what they're talking about. So we really need pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds. Get it? Okay. So this is why we need exemptions unlimited. And that's why we need no plant counts, no gram limit. And that's why they gave it to us the first time. Because we really needed it. And then many of us who were there, I think like 89% of us, died off in a year when they went, woohoo! And they signed new licenses with people that really don't understand because they weren't there and they don't know. And they keep manipulating the program over and over. In fact, what I love is how they manipulate the statistics. Who is licensed? Who is not licensed? Who can have a federal? In reality, the amount they have, even if you look at Health Canada, at this moment through Freedom of Information, that's maybe a pinch of how many people have an application pending, renewed, in process, being processed, in the mail, thousands of different. So in reality, there could be millions of them at that moment, but we're just getting a pinch of who has been granted at that split second.
420,000
right.
at this point.
And they love that statistic because it makes us look like a tiny minority.
And the whole point, and your question was, who are these people and why? These are the people that have hated us forever, that are now in charge of what it is that we're supposed to get as far as legalization goes. These same people that were prohibitionists, that have seen us as the thing to be swatting out and stamping out, this is their big plan to do that. That's what legalization is like. Sure, we'll give them legalization. They all get to go away. We'll completely disunify and disperse them. We'll give them stores. They can buy it, but they have to buy it off of us, And it's not going to be what they want. And the medical patients can go fuck themselves.
You take away economic freedom for people, they're not free anymore.
Yeah, I know.
So our specific minority has been denied a freedom, but granted to any other minority in Canada of any kind whatsoever. You could even be a Wicca, and it could be a job selling cats for burning, which I love cats, and I hate this, but this is a legal right in Canada. Burn cats, be a Wicca, and celebrate the Wiccan Act. And why can't this be at least the level of right that they get?
Well, because they're protecting greedy people that want to control everything.
I believe.
And the only other factor in that, it's about greed and control, but the only other factor is that for a long time, they have been lying to people about this. They know it's never been criminal. I mean, I mean, give it a thought. How did they ever fool everybody? How did everybody not get this one and they make us miss this? That a crime requires that you do damage, and not just that you do damage to somebody else, but that you intended to do the damage. There has to be both of those things. A significant amount of damage done and the intent to do that damage. With cannabis, they're pulling over our sons and daughters and finding that there's the smell of a plant burning, and sure enough, there's a little bag of the plant there, and then they're hauling them off to jail, taking their car, finding them, putting them through the court process, calling them criminals, causing all kinds of fucking havoc in your family and ours. For what? There's no crime. That young person didn't intend on hurting anybody. There's no victim there or anywhere else when it comes to cannabis, except the bottom line profits of people that want it prohibited for their financial reasons. This is a huge crime against us, and that's a real crime. A crime where there are victims, and there was intent involved, because they've known forever what they were doing wasn't right. They know it's not a crime to have, a free citizen grow plants and then decide how to consume those plants. And if it has an effect on the people that makes them high, well, then that's a crime. But no, they don't have the right to say that. That's never been right. That's not a thing. How did that ever get to be a thing? It just drives me nuts that the whole world population somehow was stupid enough to let these people pull the wool over their eyes that this could somehow be a crime, and then to spend most of our police resources and financial resources on attacking that. At no benefit to society, but who's benefiting? Well, all the people that want to compete with cannabis, the alcohol purveyors, in fact, the fuel purveyors, all these other people that could benefit from having this plant not in their environment. That's who they're profiting for on our dime, on our blood. Like, this has just been such a huge fucking problem, and I'm so upset that I have to swear like this, because I'm just not upset about it all. That this is, how did I end up in a world where that could happen?
Well, we've always been in that world, unfortunately. We remember
Well,
the
I
green
wasn't.
team.
I'll tell you what, I wasn't, because when I grew up, my right-wing Protestant parents had kept me in quite a little isolated world about what was going on out there and what was right and wrong, and that you obey what the policemen say, and the government is there by choice of God, and all the rest of it,
Yes.
And so I like the idea of law and justice. I grew up, wanting to beat up the bullies and be the Superman doing that and da-da-da-da-da, right? So now I take law in school, and I got a real head for it, and I'm wrapping my brain around all this stuff about what it really means, that, you've got the scales of justice, where on the one side you have how much damage can they prove that was done. Well, that's down here. And then a penalty to balance it back out again, and it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt, and you get to meet your accuser in the courtroom, and all those common law principles made a lot of sense to me, although they weren't all perfect yet, but we were evolving this in supposedly a positive way, right? And so then I get out into the world, and I'm thinking, I escaped that fucking prison that my parents had me in there, and I really felt that way, and now I'm free.
God bless them, though.
Sure.
What they were doing.
They were doing what they felt was right,
and
man, oh man, I love them to death.
I love mine. I miss mine so much, and they were doing
Dad
mine
was a
in
good
a
one,
lot of
even though
ways,
he,
too.
the manifestation of his intentions were not all that, what he intended, perhaps, but who knows, I thank him for a lot of what I think I'm blessed for. So, yeah, I thought I was going to get out into a world where things made sense, and there was justice, and that we could have, that I was free out there. And no, I'm just a person been kidnapped by a bunch of financially rich people that have control of our system, and I'm going to not smoke weed, and I can drink alcohol, and there's all these other things. Well, so I've been driven nuts ever. I started my whole show, 83 episodes ago. I think my first sentence was, I'm just a guy who went a little bit crazy about things, and this is what I've had to do ever since, is to try to sort this stuff out. But it is really, really wrong, and we need to stop it. We've needed to stop it a long time ago. It's not right that the government has the power, or any tyrant for that matter, or a king, or queen, or dictator, and nobody comes along that gets to tell you that you can't have a plant if you want, and especially if you want that plant because you're not feeling good and buddy says it could help you and you want to try it. Come on, give me a break. How wrong can this be? This is just like the most wrong thing almost ever. I'm not sure what the the death count is, but it's got to be close to any war
There's
or
no
any
way to
other
calculate the
atrocity
death
in
count.
history.
No way to calculate it.
There's no way to calculate it, but the death count, the financial cost of the attempt to prohibit cannabis is up there with any other atrocity in the world.
Absolutely. And my argument about where the dollars are going right now, that we're green team dollars, I think we know. CSU and green employments, hello, they have
millions of
they've all
dollars.
taken different jobs in different levels of bylaw and safety enforcement unit, community safety unit, and all of them have taken jobs and just switched over, and they get overtime back and forth. And
They didn't have to lay off anybody. Legalization
I-
didn't mean that any prohibitionists lost their job. They all got
they
all
all
kept their job.
upgraded.
Just as much,
Right.
more money for enforcement.
Right? And I think, I have a sneaky feeling that one of the big reasons the government wanted to go to retail in the first place was not about cashing in on anything. It was about using our debit and credit cards to further monitor our community and those that might want to join our community or want to experiment, so they can create a this is literally, if we were 80 or 70 years, we would be jazz singers. And this would be the government doing this because we were singing songs like Strange Fruit and marijuana and those, right? Because that was, the government found, and they paid millions to go after and control. And Billie Holiday spent her last hours chained to a gurney as a dead person because the Enslinger showed up and planted drugs on her, and it's as part of the FBI's job. And so what they're doing now is specifically the plan to go after and smear any one of us that could even slightly have a credible thought or hire us into an LP world that probably has a non-competition clause right in the contract. So there's just a tiny handful of us that are even living like yourself that are willing to do this. But then let's remember, first of all, the Black Panthers only were 5 to begin with, although for us, I think it's this, which is, of course, the international sign for A, which afflicted. And we are the most afflicted. But I love what Gandhi said the most, because when he first started his activism, everyone, including his wife, thought he was crazy. And he would say, look, even if I am a nation of one, the truth is still the truth. And that's all he had to believe and focus on, and inevitably he created a movement around the world, right? First South Africa, then his own country, and then I would say that he was one of the biggest influences on Malcolm and Martin and all the work that they did. And hopefully...
And me and you and everybody else.
Boom! I actually chose to learn it in school because I wanted human rights, constitutional law to be my focus. So I spent years and years studying these guys. Like they became, I feel like I know them, right? In fact, what's so wonderful of I have this wonderful wife. In fact, it's if I may plug, it's our anniversary on 420. We've been married a year.
Congratulations.
We got married last 420. We actually had a place on Sunset Beach Reserve, the place with the 2 rings, but they canceled on us the day before. But we were able to get a place at Queen Elizabeth Park, which is the highest point in Vancouver. So we did it there, and it was wonderful. So we actually. Anyway, my point is she decided not long after my father passed and then soon after my mother passed, and she decided it was time to find out who I am. Right? Going around telling them I'm an orphan, who am I? I don't know. Well, it's shocking because she got hold of it. She did through that myheritagedna.com. It was only like $60. And sure enough, my DNA comes back that I'm not Caucasian. And it shocked me because I thought, well, I've been told my whole life I'm French English. And no, I'm not. And anyway, my DNA specifically relates from a place in the world called Zoroastria.
Wow.
Ancient Zarathustra. I know it's shocking that my DNA, the 3 Magi's, now known to be part of the Christmas story in Matthew 25, that we now know as the revelation of the Magi in this new apocryphal, we know for sure Zoroastrians were cannabis worshipping priests and a whole culture of cannabis.
Well, that explains you a lot.
It explains everything about why I've spent all my life doing this since I was little. I was
They're called fire priests is the term. Well, geez,
See.
hello.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't. It
You didn't
shocked
make
me.
this shit up.
I didn't make this shit up. I
this is
swear to
it.
God.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, I loved reading all of the wonderful works by Chris Bennett. Chris Bennett, you're one of the awesome writers. Love you. And all of his works about ancient Zoroastrian and all the cannabis cultures and sacred plant cultures and Zoroaster always just incited me and blew me away. And my God, they're my relatives. Just to wrap that one little bit up, because I finally got to know, thank God for my beautiful wife Desiree, I got to know who I am. And, and I'm very grateful that I'm part of this green community, because I don't want to use the word cannabis because it's their word. I don't want to use any of their words. Black, white, how about green? Why aren't we a green community with the same level of rights of every other minority? It doesn't matter, we're one of the biggest, probably the biggest minority in Canada if you include us as disabled persons. Anyway, sorry. I don't want to go on and on because I love hearing you talk.
Don't be
You
sorry
are
at all.
a great orator, Neil, and you.
Oh man, I really appreciate the opportunity to not have to talk. There's a lot of pressure to keep
Well,
flapping my
here
gums on
I
this
got
show.
something else I want to say about you,
All right.
Neil, that I wrote down
that's,
here.
Oh wow, that's
Yes.
not what I was asking.
No, Neil, you have triumphed over criminality and ignorance to become a forceful leader and spokesman, an uncompromising champion of the people. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll send you the bill later.
No, it's no bill. It's paid in karma, and you've got so much stored up, buddy. It's a done deal. You are going to be. That karma wheel is so far the other way right now. You've got forever.
I haven't quite triumphed yet, but we believe that we're one day
It's
closer.
not the triumph. It's what you're doing in here that matters, because you know, and the energy of the universe knows what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what your focus is.
I know that there's really no no. That
There is no no.
That a no is not a no.
A
when it
delay
comes- when it
is
comes
the
to
only
this.
no they can give us.
It's just another tack to get there.
Correct.
And that the movement, or whatever it is we're in now, it's a crisis for sure, but still, the push to get the access that people really deserve to cannabis, for people that are poor, for people that are addicted, for medical patients, daily users, that's going to continue, and that has to succeed. If it's not going to succeed, I'm not sure I want to be in the world to witness that. But maybe it takes longer than I've got here to be able to achieve that. But I think that it's such a powerful force. There are way more than me, and way more than 5 and a handful now of good people.
I think
that
that's the real thing.
you know.
I don't think enough Canadians know that they are part of this green afflicted community. They don't really know. They just.
I agree. There's a lack of information.
Once they know who they are, once they understand who they are, and they realize the force that we are as an oppressed community, we will not give up till rights are granted, right? If people in wheelchairs and stretchers and quadriplegics can do it, and I found a word for us. We don't, farting, I don't really, but I found a great word. Teaching. Where we teach them, we re-educate them about what we are as people, what we are as group, what we are, so they do not fear us anymore.
We should all be teachers of whatever we believe in, and
We start in these offices of
all the time.
who's ever supporting or anyway promoting a non-rights entrenched legislative scheme for cannabis. We need to be provocateurs. We need to be Gandhiites.
Most people have a choice out there, and there's a lot to choose from. People like myself and yourself, and that, more than 5 that are out there that are working hard. We don't have a choice. I don't have a choice but to be doing what I'm doing. But our job is to communicate this to the rest of the people that have a choice and get them to choose green. Because it's so important. It's the biggest thing going, in my opinion. Whereas if this injustice can continue and be accepted, then they can do anything and they know it. If they can make that the biggest crime in Canada, the most enforced crime in Canada is all about growing or selling or possessing cannabis, then we're all in a lot of trouble if that's going to continue. But I believe that we will overcome that, and in doing so, be able to address a lot of the other areas that we are oppressed by governments, and that exposure should help us in the future. And so I'm confident in what we will achieve down the road, and that triumph will happen. So I agree.
Yeah, I'm confident it can't. In the end, the tyrant can't fail. But we, as a movement, have to recognize what are token steps by the opponent, by the oppressor? What are token steps? We can't just be shouting the word legalization when it's just a token.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to let people. We need to educate enough of the majority, silent and otherwise, the majority of what legalization is going to mean in the big picture. And one of the issues that is completely an elephant, I would say a herd of elephants that has been ignored, and I mentioned this to you, I don't know if you're okay with me discussing what happened to me in 2004. All right, so in 2004, after being part of this wonderful program and everything and getting a wonderful garden up and going and everything, of course I had...
So you were a little bit of background before
Sure.
that. You were growing for yourself?
Yes,
and
well, I had my exemptions in
and a
Health
number of
Canada.
other people as well? Or
No,
for
just
yourself?
just me at the time. Literally just
So
me.
you were an advocate for other people growing. You had done that. Through,
Definitely was. I was running the Holy Smoke dispensary in Chilliwack at the time. So
and you had done other things also in Ontario with respect to running dispensaries and helping people get access. No,
but I just gone there to deal with Health Canada directly, so to speak. In their face, forcing a real medical because I honestly, the program they were touting us as we sat there, and any other people that were there, please feel free to share in. They were telling us that they weren't even talking medical really when we got there the first day. It was a couple-day workshop. They were talking it was going to be a research, and 10 of us would get research cannabis from them, and it was going to be grown by them, and it was just like, it just really showed they were going to do exactly what they had done to my aunt in America. They were going to copy the same program. I had watched them go from offering it, and she was on the list, and then nobody in 8, and now it's research, and it's only those 8, and that's the federal program in America, and that's the only federal program in America. Just those 8 people who love cannabis. All these other state-run, state-licensed. The moment the American DEI decides, they can go and shut them down, raid them, bankrupt them, destroy the program, and enjoy doing it, and make good money at it. And there's nothing the state can do about it because, unlike the U.S., unlike us, they haven't bothered to attack the federal rights yet for cannabis. They've been happy to deal with it on a state level. We had to go federally because we knew the problems that they gave 2 craps about us surviving our chemo. So we knew we had to go to Ottawa. So the moment we knew it was a workshop, we knew we had to be there. And many of the people, other than myself and Steve and maybe a couple other people, everyone else was not just in a wheelchair. They were confined to these laying down beds. And this is the people they brought to attend. And then about 2 or 3 of us that could actually speak. It was almost like they thought that we were all going to be in the same position. And at the time, I was still walking around, and my health mate. I'm shocked. I mean, I'm healthier today than I ever was in my 20s.
And you were really unhealthy for a while.
Oh my goodness! I went through a long time where I was in a scooter and canes and horrible.
And you weren't supposed to live even.
Well, I've been given. Well, yeah, I've medically been given 2 years to live. That was in 2002. But the home invasion, so that's what we were sort of alluding to. September 1st, 2004, about 1:32 in the morning, there's tap on my bedroom window and a tap on the glass door. I had a big wraparound rancher, and just out of the blue. And this was before we even had to give out our locations to the police of any kind. Only Health Canada had our information about it, but as you probably remember, that information, a police officer was caught driving off grounds with it. You're absolutely right. Strange as that is. In fact, that year, I don't want to jump ahead. So I open up the windows, and there's 2 officers dressed in their full proper uniforms and everything, and I'm thinking, why are you guys at my window, and why is it 1:30 in the morning? And they're just going, open the window. I'm like, you got a warrant or something? And they're just going, no, just open. No, hang on. And I just grab my phone and I call the 911. I said, is there supposed to be a warrant at my place? And I'm on the phone. They got me on hold, and I'm just waiting, and all of a sudden I can hear them tapping down the end. And of course, my ex-wife wouldn't. I said, don't open the door. Of course, I was not listening to it at the time, and they opened, and they came in full force. It wasn't, of course, police. They just somehow had perfect uniform.
Speaking of police. Yeah.
It was weird timing.
We live right beside a police station.
I'm just kidding around. They came in with such force and literally took everyone with guns to the head. My children were luckily sleeping, but they did eventually wake up and were also done. It was just horrific. And then, of course, I was they separated us all, them in one area and me in another area, stripped me naked, taped me from behind, taped my mouth, just strange because they were asking questions, why you would do that, and then put me in a big white sack they had brought with them. Oh, let me be clear, by this point, the actual home invader hitman had transferred, the police had, and I found out later, I'd gone back to the car sitting outside, because they were actually police that had got them to open the door, which is really shocking. And then the home invaders did all their job and spent all the time torturing me in this sack, pepper spraying me, beating me, pepper spraying me, beating me. Where's the money? Where's the drugs? And I'm a licensee. That's my medicine right there. It's a little garden. You can go take a look. There's nothing. Didn't matter. Where's the drug? Beat, 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 beat. And, inevitably they thought I was dead. And that's when they eventually left. And luckily I wasn't dead. And I came to and somehow was able to free my hands and I ran out, and that's how I was able to see the police cruiser sitting out front, just down the road with the lights off, and I ran out naked in the streets, and they turned the lights on and came. So they were sitting out there the whole time. Anyway, long story short, I ended up getting an associate of mine that I knew from law school to go with me to the police detachment to ask about it later, once I could see again, and they basically threatened me and said, in front of them, they said, if you even try to look into this or bring it up at all, we'll just let them know where you're staying right now. And they can just finish the job. And they said it right in front of this lawyer friend of mine who literally just, he barely talks to me. If I see him in court, he barely waves at me now. I could tell he's just scared to death because he realized that police have that level of criminality. And when you really realize that they're willing to kill or at least torture you to death with children around and it doesn't bother them, that's when I realized that I had no choice. And sure, but it didn't take long for me to really enforce my own court protection by a judge. And I, explained to her, look at what I'm going to go through here. Look at what I've been through. Look at what I'm going through. How can I not have, only you can protect me. No law, no government, no program in this country will protect a person that has to grow cannabis by necessity. No law. So the rights for disabled just doesn't exist whatsoever unless the judge gives it to us. So that's what we almost have to do, but that just seems contradictory. Why not just do a teach-in and shut down entire districts of commerce during rush hour and force the issue to the forefront? That's our only way to get full non-discrimination rights where people like me can get home invaded and now have to live in this constant fear of them coming again or finishing the job or whatever. Right, and I looked it up that year. I actually wrote a paper. I was in school. I didn't even quit school. I kept going. I was in law school, kept going, doing 2 different degrees at the time. And it's amazing that I did them. They accommodated for me not being able to see. That was really cool. They gave me all my books on tape and stuff. But I still, and I talked to my prof in Crim. I don't know if I should plug him. Anyway, Dr. Plekas. And I said, look, I need to do a study on home invasion. I need to know what the heck happened to me. I need to know academically. And he agreed to me. I did a director's studies. I got the 3 credits for it, and I started studying. And I did a full paper on it. I might have sent it to you. I don't know if I sent it to you, but I uncovered that, of course, there's no legislation in Canada for it. So, of course, they're allowed to, any hit group and police group can do this because it's breaking and entering with maybe some intent, but you just have to show no intent. And guess what? It's B&E. So who's going to really go to trial for a B&E? Nobody. So these crimes go on unresponded. In fact, the 2 times our federal government has been almost lobbied to create home invasion legislation, the RCMP lobby groups, of course, fought it tooth and nail. Why they would do such a thing, I don't know. Must maybe, because if every murder gives us $1 million, how much do we get for every murder home invasion investigation? Especially if they're doing it and setting them up themselves. Isn't it almost like firefighters going out setting fires and putting them out? Now, being a former volunteer firefighter, I've never been witness to such a thing, and I would hope that no firefighter would ever do such a fucking horrible thing. But some have. Yeah. And it's sad to know, in fact, the fire crew I worked on, one of the reasons I ended up leaving is people would not stop drinking at calls. And I could not be a part of I was chief medical officer by this point, and I was not going to be at a call where people were actually maybe drunk, or at least I could smell, and it's just no way. And I just told chief, I'm not going to participate. I don't drink. I'm against, I still don't drink. I'm definitely not involved with saving lives with alcohol around. It's just no way. And,
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Anyway, so there's my home invasion story. I don't think I've ever told it publicly. I mean, it's been covered in the media before, but I did some artwork about it. a really neat painting I did. Once my eyesight came back, it took about 7 months where I could see. I did this huge mural telling the history of home invasion with myself in it, including the original home invasion group, the Dirty Dozen. So they were police off-duty hitmen called the Dirty Dozen that started the first home invasion groups. And not funny. Who were the first cops in Canada? Were they I can't remember that. Some initials. I don't know. But anyway, it's funny how they're the same ones that still promoted as just breaking and entering. In fact, that year when I was home invaded, 82 of my brothers with federal exemptions were also home invaded brutally that year. One of my friends, John Grist, they not only tortured him like they did with me with the crowbars and pepper sprays and tasers like they did me, but they went as far as taking apart his toaster, putting it to his feet and his toes and electrocuting him for hours and hours and hours. And it's just wonderful what our government has allowed with this so-called legislation of medical cannabis. I should hear chirping, like owl crickets. But anyway, that's the reality. There's no program. And we are the targets, and we've always been, but it's not just medical patients now. We're out there as the main target, sitting in a wheelchair being shot at, but everyone who's got green communities out there now is being, and we basically, by letting them dictate the evil mentality upon us, the negative reversal of what we know to reality, they are going to continue to promulgate propaganda on the silent masses that are the ones that could be fighting with us, that we need fighting beside us, that we need pushing our wheelchairs down the road so we can go and do the lay-ins. I don't know if people remember in the 90s, we did those ACT UP events where we would just, during rush hour, lay down on Robson, we would lay down at the courthouse, we'd lay down there, and we would have this year, this month we have 800 deaths from HIV, we would just in their face, You're forgetting about our dying brothers and sisters. Currently, 1 in 2 Canadians suffer with cancer. Why is that not the biggest oppressed minority in Canada? That's 50% people. Doesn't discriminate, male, female, black, white, LGBT, does not discriminate. 50% of us are going to deal with it. Why are we trumpeting the need for homeostasis for sure with half our population? And the rest, well, they need to look after them. So maybe they need to be healthy too, right? So we don't have a breast milk for them, but we definitely have access to cannabinoids, the same as breast milk. So what's the big deal, people?
You got a long ways to go.
I love it. And you know what? If it wasn't for your show, Neil, I don't know what I would do to focus my desire, my choice to try to want to see this succeed as bad as you do, as bad as Neil does, as bad as the real people that our hearts are beating green. We are out there, right? Afflicted and beating green, and the worst of us can't stand up for. In fact, when I was doing Holy Smoke for all those years, the most afflicted, there's no way they could even write a letter. Most of the people, in fact, I went to school with people that never held a pen or typed a thing, and they got PhDs. Why? Because I made sure I got them their human rights all the way through for accommodation. In fact, after me, once I got into law school, immediately after me, 3 people with cancer and 2 with HIV got into law school right away using my precedent. Because there had never been anybody using medical cannabis had ever been allowed to not just get into law school, had ever been allowed to take the law school admissions test. So that means no law school in North America will ever let you in. Because you don't have an LSAT score, you're not allowed to attend. Doesn't matter what you get. So they literally were, and I'm sure to this day, there are certain minorities that aren't being let in, but I've met many people with Downs and Asperger's and autism that got their full law degree. Well, it is only 3.5 years. For them, it's maybe 8. Why shouldn't they graduate? I know judges that took 10 years to get their law degree. What's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with that. It's really, really cool that there's a lot more inclusion now than there was before, and that you had a lot to do with that, and that's really awesome. At this point, you're also considering a book. Is there anything you want to talk about with your present
it's already written. Book's been written. My author, God bless her, Dr. Anita Arvast, LGTP professor at York and the related colleges in Toronto, has been working on the book since she started covering my case. And yeah, it's I gotta say, it should have come already, but you think that issues like this would be, they just had that movie, It's a Sin, you'd think, that series, you'd think that it would be a forefront issue as people with terminal illnesses that are doing great, but, You know, she's finding that to get a publishers is not the publisher she even had CBC offering podcasts. Now they haven't done it, so she even has it in a podcast format. And so I've told her, I said, you know, once I don't mind if I have to pay for the publication myself, if I have to. I mean, down the road, but it should be university press because they're going to use it as a textbook to retrain this type of law anyway. So, but it's a part of our, you know, our system is systemically broke. And, you know, I have tried in vain to work within it, work part of it, fight it, and
all not in vain, all just practice. And all other bricks in the wall. As we continue to build our wall to heaven, we will eventually get there if enough good people keep doing things. Like you say, there are things we can do. We can organize lay-ins, and if not, if you have
teach-ins.
Teachings. That's
even
all.
Though we may be laying there, but they're teach-ins. We're teaching from our different way that we have to. This is how we have to dialogue. It may be nonverbal. It may be by hand signals. It may be.
It's all of those things. It'll be all of those things, absolutely. And we all bring something else to the table. Yes. And it's important that we all come to the table with something. Yes. And thanks for referencing what we're doing here, because I think it's time to go have a look at the RV out there and wrap things up. Awesome. I really appreciate your time today. It was great to have you on the show.
Thank you for all you do, and I hope everyone
out there all your really words.
Well, it's not just words; they're well thought out, and they are important. And I wanted to, you know, the world to know you're important.
At some point, I'll figure out how to get that pin off of there, and I'll put the. Oh,
there you go. Can you just pull the back?
I was pulling the back. I was pulling, and it just wasn't coming. I was like, what the heck am I doing wrong here? So I gave up on it, and then it just fell off of my hand right there.
I love this pin was this Mr. Butterman's, and he willed me a lot of stuff. He was one of my very good friends. Yeah. Him and he actually introduced me and Neil a few years ago, and good thing he did. He'd be very happy knowing that Neil and I are sitting here today talking like this. I know he would be very happy. We love Steve. We think about him all the time.
Yeah, I did. I was worried there.
He was our buddy.
Upside down. All right.
It even goes on a tie or whatever, like just to make it canvas up, whatever it is. You know, sometimes I lucked out and had a tie for my wedding, so I like to, you know. Thank you. No,
thank you.
I'll get out of your way. Great guys. I really love this movie. I don't know. Have you got it put on DVD or?
We just got that today as a donation.
That's amazing. Did you watch this, Neil? Oh man.
It is a lovely day here in Vancouver, that's for sure. We've got a string of nice weather coming along, and we're right here downtown East Van, close to Main and Hastings, just one block over that way. And this is the CSP RV that we have been operating our program from and allowing people to get low barrier access to cannabinoids for, well, over 5 months now, since we couldn't stay in the store anymore, which is really kind of silly because here we are 40 feet away from the store that we had where we can really help people a lot better. But we've been forced out onto the curb into an RV where we continue, and we will continue until such time as either we're told yes or no by the federal government, as we've applied for a license to be able to provide low barrier access to cannabis to offset the opioid situation here in Vancouver. And that was over 7 months, 3 days from now, it'll be 7 months from now that we applied for that license to do that, and we even would just be happy with a temporary exemption from the health minister to be able to at least get permission to do this so that we can move back into the store, do it properly, open a bank account for our society that to this point we can't because we're helping people get access to cannabis, not through the Cannabis Act, and so banks don't want to deal with you. So anyway, we're facing all of these barriers for no good reason from a federal government that wants to protect their interests in providing non-medical cannabis to people through their licensed stores, and people really need to have access to medical cannabis at prices that make sense for them, because daily users can't afford government prices, that's for sure, not almost anybody. And so this is the struggle that we're in, is to get permission to be able to do this, and we're doing it this way until they say yes or no, and then we'll see what we do after that. Okay, this is the RV. So maybe knock on the back door. I see there's somebody already at the side window there. Anybody home?
Yes, we are. How's it going?
This is Andrew. He's our dedicated dispenser of cannabinoids for the last almost must be 4 years now.
Yeah, it's full.
Must be just about on the cusp of an anniversary of 4 years.
Yeah, we've been doing this for 4 years, or just a bit
I
more.
think so.
Yeah,
because 2 months after I started is about the same time as Ted handed it over to you.
yeah, we've been there
So
for
yeah,
3 years.
so it's 4 years
So
now.
3
We
years.
should have a cake.
We should.
We should have a cake.
So we've been doing so
So
good.
this is where people come that are part of our program, the CSP program. And they can come every 4 days. They can get 420 milligrams of their choice. And so what's in the tray today and what's the potency?
I have everything here at 80. Everything's 80 milligrams.
Everything's 80.
Except for the gummies. These are 100 milligrams each for people who need high dose. And these ones here are 50 milligrams each. There's 2 in the package for 100 for the people who like a little lower dose. And we have cookies at 80 milligrams. We have some brownies that just came in. Very nice brownies, nice and soft that came in. They're 80 milligrams.
So in other words, they basically get their choice of 4 things.
By 80 milligrams, we'll give them a choice of 5 things.
Or is it 4 things? 5 things? 5 things.
times 4.
Yeah, 5 times 4. My math is out. 5 times 4.
8 times 5 is 4.
So they can get 5 items and then they don't get to actually get the 20 because they don't have
80
anything that's 20.
milligrams times 5 would give them 400 milligrams.
Right.
If they want, I have some.
You have capsules.
I have some capsules right here.
Yeah. So they can top it up with caps.
20 milligram CBD capsules, and I have 20 milligram hybrid capsules.
Perfect. That's how you
If
do
want to
it.
top it up, that's how we do it.
All right.
And everybody loves the pills. And everybody, it's great. Yeah. Everybody's in a good mood today.
Yeah.
Right? It's a nice day. Everybody loves the day. They're in a good mood. Love to get their package. Everybody says thanks. Thanks for what you're doing. We've had some donations today.
Nice.
Very nice. Very good.
nice.
It's been
Great job. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Hello. Hello. You don't look like Jen at all.
No, I'm substituting. She needed a break.
This is George. George the substitute.
She needed a break today.
It's looking like life in there. I think it's, getting a little cluttered, isn't it? It looks like somebody's like hoarding home of some sort. Well, we got a lot going on in there, right? You gotta have space for things. I mean, they're living in here for over 5 months now. It's a small space. 3 or 4 people living in it 6 days a week, 8 hours a day. Gets to be a bit like home.
We're like 9 hours a day. She thinks he's coming early.
I know it's more like 9 hours a day.
It's gotta get done.
Okay, I'm coming in. Let's go see what's going on inside.
Lighter back. Thank you. I'd like to have this one.
Over here. Remember when it was dark when we used to come out here and do the show? Yeah, it's much brighter days these days. In fact, it doesn't get dark at all anymore. It's light all day long, so that's a help. And it's not too cold.
Depends on the day. If it's
Yeah, if
cloudy
it's
and
raining.
it's dark.
It's true, if it's raining. So, anyway, anything going on that you want to report? Anything you want to say?
Well, we had that wonderful cake from Carly Thiessen today to give out, which made a whole lot of people happy. One guy actually was complaining about headache, and I was like, well, here, try the cake.
Yeah, well,
Probably
it's
give you
good.
a
You gotta go to
help
the
you.
back
Literally like 5 minutes later, he's like, it already helped my headache.
Nice. And I want to give a huge shout out to Chris Backer and his volunteers for the East Coast Cannabis Substitution Program. I know that they're out there every Monday helping their community out and doing very wonderful things. So thank you so much for that, and we really appreciate that. And Mary McCarty, huge shout out to her. She's in London, Ontario at this point, and she's putting things together for the CSP London version, London chapter. And if you're in London, Ontario, or anywhere close to that, and you want to be part of this wonderful operation of helping people get access to cannabinoids to get them off of the opioids, then Mary's going to provide the opportunity for you to help do that there. And so that's awesome. And other people, I'm told, around other places, lots of places are helping people get access to cannabis, whether it be a chapter of our CSP or whether they're just doing it on their own. And all of that is part of how we'll make this work. We've got a lot of work to do to turn things around. This has been a long, hard-fought journey to get respect for cannabis and what it's able to do. And we're still up against some pretty strong forces that would prefer to have it stigmatized and demonized and only allowed in very restrictive, regulated ways, and not recognize it for all of its value in not just fighting the overdose epidemic, but also for overall health and wellness for people. So there's lots of things people can do. What do you recommend? I'm just putting it on the spot here.
CBD oil is fantastic.
Oh, I meant to convince the government.
Oh God, I wish I knew how to do that.
Yeah, I wish we knew how to do that too. You know, we do our part. We do the show once a week, and I write letters to different people in government and media as time goes by, day by day.
Calling them daily as well.
Yeah, other people have taken it upon themselves to make calls to these people and to try to encourage them to help us and allow us.
It sucks that we have to try to force it on them, accept it already. It's medical. It helps people. I don't understand the fucking problem.
It really should have been a no-brainer. It could have happened two ways. When we sent in our application, they could have read the application, done about an hour's worth of searching whatever their sources are to realize that we're telling the truth. This really does help people, and then give us the application. And the other way that it could have happened was to come and visit us here. Come and see what we're doing here. Spend a couple hours with us, see the people that we're helping, see how the people talk about how it helps them. And then it would be pretty quick and easy, they'd sign the paper. So the minister should have done one of those two things, either sent their people here or come here themselves and have a look, and then, or, have a look at our application and do some due diligence. And within a few hours, either way, you'd be writing that note saying, yes, these people can keep doing what they're doing.
Their emails to you hilarious. Oh, we're so diligently working.
Yeah, working, the team.
Diligently doing what?
And it's not just them, it's a whole team.
6.5 fucking months.
It's not even just one person, it's a whole team.
Yeah, that you find out it's one person and he's buried under a wall of paperwork.
And promises to
do
not
they read
do
one
this.
letter? Do they read one word a day? Is that why it's taking so long?
Let's not insult the poor people.
Well,
it's probably for good reason. We're just not smart enough to know what it is. I can only imagine. But seriously, it shouldn't take much to understand that we've been doing this for 4 years. We've got the support of all of the groups in the area here. All the harm reduction groups support us. We've got doctors and professors, the local psychiatric nurse. All of these people support what we're doing here. Hundreds of people in our program for years.
When people see our Facebook posts, there are so many people be like, "Oh, we need this in my city. We need this." They need this everywhere.
You can check us out on Facebook, the Cannabis Substitution Program. You'll see a daily blog by Jen Nelson here.
On Facebook.
Cannabis Substitution Project. It was a project for most of its time. Now it's more of a program.
So they know what to look up.
But you got to be correct in what you look up for sure. And hopefully you can find it there. I don't know, Facebook's not that friendly to the
I believe
cannabis
it is
community.
showing up again. It's not being hidden anymore.
It should show up. So check us out and see what's going on and see how you can maybe get something going on in your town or do something. We got to do something. Everybody does something. We can maybe get this thing
so
done.
Many people that chip in to make this all work, right?
This is a real huge community effort here.
We have so
Talk
many
about shout outs to people.
donors,
The people that donate to this program are absolute angels. It's too complicated and too many to mention, basically. Jen tries to do it in her blog, and I used to do it when I was writing about our things at Van Du.
I always forget something.
But it's all done through donations. All these people on the program, it's all done through donations. And the people that come and get a free joint or free muffins also, because we have enough donations to handle that. And those people are just wonderful. That's how the program works. If it wasn't
we have
for,
some people every once in a while that stop by and particularly donate money. They say this is to go towards all the people that are asking for, free joint, free weed, whatever.
Yeah, all the wonderful people that have helped us over the years. It's just fantastic. Way too many to name, but you all know who you are, and we all hold you fondly in our hearts. And this program has been sustained.
Love is contagious.
Because of a whole bunch of people, that's for sure. So that's kind of it, for the program today. I think I really appreciate everybody who watches the show, and I appreciate all the comments. I get to see some of them after the fact. I don't keep track of the chat during the show. But thanks for everybody.
You know, we could use more donations. That way we could add more people to the program.
We're doing okay, but yeah, always, you know. It's tough.
Never
It's
hurts
tough.
to put it out there.
It's tough being the guy that always asks for donations, so I try not to do that too
That's
much.
why I said it for you.
I
There
just,
you
you know,
you got me to do
I love it when people contact me and say, hey, I heard about what you're doing and I want to help out, and we try to make that work all the time, and because of that, this has been working for all this length of time. And this is pretty huge here, what we're doing. It seems like just a few people in a simple little RV, but in this neighborhood, we've got literally hundreds and hundreds of people that are having their lives changed every day by what we're doing here and the compassion that we're dispensing. So that's really good, and I appreciate all the people that have helped get us to where we are and they keep us going. It's just incredible to be a part of this and to see all the people that really care. So thank you all. Pot TV is a good place to find out things. I'm very thankful that I'm given the platform to educate you people about what we're doing here. There's other things going on in the pot world all the time. You can check that out on the other shows, Carly Marley and BC Bud Gal on Mondays at 4 o'clock for the 420 Lifestyle Show. We've got, BC Bud Gal is back again on Thursdays with Morning Glory at 10 o'clock. We're still really missing and mourning Greg Williams, and so we don't have anybody in the Wednesday slot at this time. Greg is especially being missed at this time as we think about all the 420s that he emceed for us over the past and so much more. And I hope he's enjoying the afterlife and appreciating all the love that is being constantly sent to him. And I feel it every day, and I know a number of us do. So I miss you, Greg. Peace and pot to you for sure. And on Fridays, Johnny B has got his show, How's It Growing? And that's a very important thing as well. One of the more important things that Pot TV is doing is providing, as it has for many years, instructions on how to grow. This is a great time to grow plants for yourself, the right time of the year, the right time in history, and if you can, you should, and there's great value in doing that. And Johnny B's is a place where you can find that out. So How's It Growing every Friday with Johnny B. I'll be back next Tuesday on a very special THC show live from Sunset Beach, and we'll see what's going on there in this COVID protocol world that we live in. We think that there can be protests done responsibly. There has been a number of them over the past year, and there's a lot to protest yet with the whole issue of cannabis and availability and low barrier access and who's selling what to who and what sort of regulations and all the rest of the stuff. There's lots and lots that it's very serious that we address these issues. 420 is a time when we try to do that. So if we can have a responsible gathering that gathers some media attention and we can speak to the issues, I think that's a good thing, and we'll try to do it as best we can, although I'm not involved in organizing. Nobody really is. I just know that there's a bunch of people that are going to set up booths down there, and those that are talking about doing that are all talking about doing it with the best of intentions, following provincial guidelines, and doing it as responsibly as possible. So I'll try to do my part to make sure that's the case as well. And in the meantime, go about having a great life, changing the world, doing your part, whatever that may be, letters, emails, phone calls, conversations, thinking about a vision of a brighter future. All of those things help, and we need all the help we can get. And while you're doing that, be kind to yourself, be kind to all the people around you, and have as much fun as you can.